Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today. Chapter 948. Ash on Stone. We handed the rim to people who could keep it quiet without us and stepped through the warp to Avalon. Ouroboros HQ smelled like home and hot copper. Elias met us with a slate and 3 urgent lines. I didn't read the third, because something wrong rolled over my tongue like old smoke. Order of the Fallen Flame. I didn't say it. I opened Gray. 2 flat pages slid apart in my head. Avalon laid itself between them, relations, not streets. Heat to promise. Footstep to intention. Down in the East Quarter, under the old catacombs, a thread of pride and blood was waking. In the city's skin, on the surface, another touch burned clean and quiet. The graveyard we tend because someone has to. I shut Gray. The room came back. Rose, I said. She was already watching me. Where? Evelyn's line. East Quarter. Below the catacombs. I lifted 2 fingers and wrote a thin stroke in gray between us. No light, no sound, just a rule. A trail that only you will see. It ignores their mirrors and their decoys. It'll take you to her. Her jaw set. Understood. Reka was there before I finished. I shadow. Outer ring, no speeches. She brushed Rose's shoulder. A quick, solid touch, and was gone with her. Rachel, I said. Redeemers to the East Quarter. Lanterns dim. If they try to turn a room into a mouth, close the teeth. On it, she said, voice already soft and steady on the command channel. Cecilia, I said. Salt their ducks. If you smell performance, hum offbeat. She grinned without joy. I'll make their fire stutter. Serafina, I said. If they spike heat through stone, turn it into ice and make it stop. She nodded once, braid tight, eyes colder than the plan. Erebus stood in the doorway like a shadow drawn with bone. Anchors. 2 per corridor, I told him. No tunnels closing on us tonight. Always. Lyra and Tiamat listened from the back. Lyra's voice came quiet and clear. If you taste the cadence we showed you, do not test it. Call me. I will, I said. Brother lived under the word and didn't need saying. I didn't take a squad to the graveyard. I took Valeria honest on my hip, Luna quiet in my lungs, and 2 redeemers because memory needs witnesses. We crossed the city in 3 turns. Gray smoothed the lines under my feet and made the streets forget they were long. The graveyard sat where Avalon stops, pretending it isn't old. Low wall, black iron. Names that still feel warm when the day refuses to leave. Redeemer lanterns made small islands in the dark. It was quiet. Good quiet. Gray opened again because I asked it to. The pages parted. The graves arranged themselves as relations. Grief to name, name to oath, oath to the path a man takes when he promises something he doesn't understand. That path ran down the center lane and stopped at a stone set a little apart. Alara. I closed Gray. I walked. He was already there. Jack Blazespout knelt at Alara's grave like he'd remembered how to do one thing right. No entourage. No show magic curling off his hands. Just a coat he wore to feel human, and shoulders that weren't as proud as I remembered. The Redeemers hung back without a word. Their lantern light gilded the names. Someone had left a string of blue paper flowers at the base of Alara's stone. They moved even though the air didn't. Jack didn't look at me. He looked at her name. His voice was low, like he was talking to a person who might answer if he said it gently enough. I told you I'd burn them all, he said. It didn't sound like boasting. It sounded like a vow that had gotten lost on the way to being kept. That promise is late, I said. He didn't flinch. He lifted his head and met my eyes. For a heartbeat I saw the academy boy he used to be. Tall, loud. Sure the world would clap when he snapped his fingers. Arthur, he said. Not Grandmaster. Not hero. Just my name. You're kneeling in front of someone who deserved better than your kind of fire, I said. Stand up. He stood. Slow. He didn't glance at Valeria. He glanced at the lanterns. Then at the string of paper flowers like it surprised him that someone else remembered to be kind. Your people are under the city again, he said. I came to tell you. I know, I said. Rose is on the line. His mouth tightened a fraction at her name. Old history. Old failure. I'm not here to bargain, he said. Good, I said. I'm not here to forgive. He almost smiled at that. Of course you're not. The Redeemer behind me shifted a boot. The lantern chimed once against its ring. Jack's eyes moved to the light and back. He did a small, tired calculation in his head. He knew how this could end. Leave, I said. Or kneel and stay very still until I say otherwise. He shook his head one small no. Not yet, he said, voice gone soft. Let me have a minute. Alara's minutes were yours to protect, I said. You wasted them. His jaw moved like a man chewing a truth he didn't like. He didn't answer. Under the city, something sharp cracked. Far away, the note a ritual makes when a circle sours. Rose's voice came over our private thread. Steady. Found her. Your trail held. Beginning the cut. Copy, I said. I'm at Alara. Gray flexed at the edge of thought. I let it crack open just enough to taste the path around us. The graves were stone and names. The air was honest. The ground was wrong. Thin lines under the topsoil, near the base of 6 stones around Alara's. Not strong. Set to wake under a certain weight. A pattern a man like Jack would draw when he wanted to make a point ugly. Jack? I said. Eyes still on him, voice even. What did you plant? He didn't look away. He had the sense to keep his hands where I could see them. A farewell, he said. Valeria warmed in my palm without leaving the sheath. Trap. She breathed against my skin. Small teeth. Cruel teeth. Rachel, I said on the open Redeemer band, keeping my voice the same size. Static. Don't move your lanterns. Holding, she said at once. There was a shift in the air behind me as both Redeemers eased their balance onto their heels. Disarm, Valeria suggested, almost amused. We can draw a clean line. Not yet, I thought back. Jack finally looked down. His left hand was flat on the top edge of Alara's stone. His right hand curled on his knee. The skin over his knuckles was too smooth for a man who'd done the work he pretended to do. The smoothness of someone who let others carry the load while he lit the match. I loved her, he said. You killed her, I said. He swallowed. I killed her. We stood like that for the length of one bad memory. The lanterns breathed. The city's night ran around the wall like water. Then his right hand twitched small, almost nothing, toward the edge of the stone. Gray blew open on its own. The 2 pages slammed outward. The 6 thin lines under the topsoil lit up between them like threads dragged across bone. Each line ran to a tiny seal coin buried at the foot of the nearest stone. The coins wanted one thing: weight, heat, and a name spoken in the right voice. Jack drew breath. Don't, I said. He smiled without humor. You think I came to leave, Arthur? The buried coin at Alara's feet warmed. The gray page showed a spark crawling toward it. Valeria's voice sharpened. Now, I moved, and the graves around us answered with a soft, rising hum. Chapter 949. Hellflame Emperor 1. I never liked kneeling. Too much theater, not enough leverage. But I'm on my knees now because I deserve it, and because this headstone carries a name I don't get to say out loud anymore. Alara. The stone is colder than my hands. The paper flower someone left here move even though the air is still. I feel him before I see him, wait on the world that wasn't there. Then is Nightingale. Good. I wanted him to be here to watch. My mind drags me backward whether I want it to or not. The moment he smiled, I knew I was going to die. Not because he showed teeth. Because the world around him changed its mind. My nirvana and abyssal flames were a certainty everything burns if you're stubborn enough. I threw them anyway, purple-white spirals meant to erase a city block. He held up a hand and my power turned into petals. Not blocked. Not countered. Just not fire anymore. A garden fell around us. Trees with books for leaves. Flowers with stories in their veins. Mythweaver's Garden, he said, like the name of a place should be allowed to rewrite physics. I screamed and punched and bled and he let me. Every time I built heat, butterflies. Every time I tried to be clever, the rules changed again. He wasn't posturing. He wasn't angry. He was past both. That's the part that hurt. You loved her, he said, and then he broke my ribs. He wasn't wrong. When the killing blow came down, it stopped on a black rose. Not a trick of shadow. A flower that ate light and made it taste like silk and iron. A voice slid out of it, soft as poison. Not yet, young Nightingale. This story requires a different ending. The garden flickered. He pulled his hand back, eyes narrowing, trying to feel a thread that wasn't his. The rose became a door. I fell through it because I had no choice, because my story was bought and paid for by a woman who thinks in knives and prayers. The door took me to a room under the city where the air tasted like old blood and chalk and choices I wasn't brave enough to make. Her Holiness Evelyn sat on a stone chair and looked at me like a problem she had already solved. "You failed," she said. "Yes," I said, "because I'm a liar, but not about that." "You lived," she added, "which wasn't completely my fault." "Yes." "Get up," she said. "Then get better." So I did. Back in the present. My fingers press into the top edge of Alara's stone. My other hand stays open on my knee. Don't startle the Redeemers. Don't give the Saintess an excuse to draw light through my skull. I can feel Arthur's gaze like a hand on my shoulder. He says stand. I stand. He says leave. I don't. I loved her. I tell him, because it's ugly and true. You killed her. He answers, because it's uglier and still true. He's right. He usually is. That's the problem. 3 years is a long time to stay afraid. I used all of it. I learned every page the fallen flame keeps locked. Not the showy rites they use to recruit children who want to glow. The buried meth. The pressure cuts. The way to pull heat out of stone without leaving your fingerprints behind. I held abyssal fire in my mouth until my gums bled. I slept with nirvana embers under my tongue until I could wake without choking. I watched a line of ink draw circles I couldn't admit I wanted to step into, and I didn't step because I needed a power I could carry outside a room with chalk on the floor. I let them break my channels and rebuilt them knotted, so when someone tried to turn my flame into butterflies again, the knot would catch the trick and feed it ash. I learned a new language in a salt vault favored by the Tidewalkers before we killed them. Their pressure songs aren't ours, but pressure is pressure, and a flame that can hear is a flame that can refuse. I wrote 7 oaths on 7 bones. Not blood. Ink. Ground from old soot and regret and something Her Holiness gave me without telling me the price. Each oath cut away a cowardice. First, I will not bargain with elation. Second, I will not apologize to my hands. Third, I will not pretend I was tricked. Fourth, I will not speak her name to make pity the point. Fifth, I will not take the small victory if the large failure still stands. Sixth, I will not ask the wrong people to forgive me. Seventh, I will not forget that I loved her. Alara, I didn't write. That one doesn't get ink. When I ran heat through those bones, something new woke up along with the old. Not nirvana, not abyss. Those are colors. This wasn't a color. I call it Requiem Ember because everything needs a name, and that one makes the inner zealots shake. It doesn't burn matter first. It burns outcomes. It eats the path the thing is trying to take. If someone decides my fire is butterflies, Requiem makes the decision combust. The butterflies can exist somewhere else, not here. I trained it until my jaw ached. I failed 100 times and woke in salt on stone to try again. I imagined his garden every night until my teeth hurt and fed that memory to the ember until the memory stopped tasting like fear and started tasting like fuel. Because he was always coming back stronger. Of course he was. Heroes make a living out of doing impossible things while people clap. I had to build something that didn't care about applause. Not to beat him. I'm not stupid. To stand upright when he looks at me like a problem that learned to read. The hum under my knees is mine. Not a bomb. A bell. 6 coins under 6 stones around her grave. Set shallow with care. Tuned to weight and heat, and a voice that remembers how I said her name when I still believed good things couldn't die. I brought a bell to a grave because grief is a better pry bar than rage if you have the hands for it. He hears it. Of course he does. His blade murmurs in its sheath, and I hate that it has a voice, hate that I envy the way it likes him. Don't, he says. I'm already doing it. The coins answer one by one. No fire. No light. Just a pressure change that makes the night tilt in place and a sound a gate makes before it becomes a door. Not his gate. Mine. I built this pry over 3 years and 7 oaths and the kind of practice that leaves you with cracked lips and a throat full of smoke. I built it because facing him as I was then would be a mercy killing. I press my palm flat on Alara's stone and let every lie I've ever told burn out of me at once. The world folds like paper right above my head. Not platinum silver. Not his pretty doors. Mine are black iron edged in chalk and ash. They smell like wet matches and old promises. They're ugly. They suit me. The gates of transcendence don't owe anyone anything. They ask one question. Are you ready to be crushed into a shape that won't run? 3 years ago I would have run. I don't run. The iron parts a finger's width and the night roars in. Heat, then cold, then the absence of both. For a heartbeat I see her in the space between. Violet eyes. That museum smile. Patient and too kind. It hurts like truth. I let it. Requiem ember lights in my ribs, small and absolute. A coal that eats the path where fear would walk. Nirvana wraps it. Abyss feeds it. The 7 oaths stack around it like ribs. I push. The chalk line snaps. The iron yawns. Every channel I own catches, not like fire, like a gear finally finding teeth. Power lands in me the way a verdict lands. Not joy. Not relief. Fit. High radiant isn't bright. It's heavy. The pressure throws dust in a ring without lifting a single petal someone left at her stone. The Redeemer's lanterns shiver and then steady. The Saintess will feel it wherever she is and hate it. Good. I want her to. I stand without my knees arguing about it. The stone under my palm is warm now. My hands don't shake. I told you I'd burn them all. I say, and this time it isn't theater. He stares at me. He's still stronger. He will be stronger again tomorrow because that's what he does. But for once, I didn't ask the wrong person to forgive me. For once, I brought my own door. I open my right hand and the new flame shows itself. Not purple. Not white. Not black. A color your eyes don't know where to put. It doesn't lick. It writes. Requiem Ember. Watch me. I tell the stone. Not him. Her. I'll pay for it. The graveyard hum rises. The 6 coins finish their last note. And the iron behind my teeth stops tasting like fear. I look up at him and smile in a way that hurts my face. Round 2. I say. Chapter 950. Hellflame Emperor 2. Alara's name on the marble was the last human thing between us. Not here, I said. Jack didn't look away from the stone. Never here. We both turned. I opened a clean lane through Ouroboros, short hop, no witnesses, and stepped through first. Courtesy pings went out as my feet left Avalon. North, west, east, central, south. 1 line each, training area request, no approach. 2 answers came back almost on top of each other. North, corridor clear. West, don't die without me watching. J. I dropped onto powder gray rock and old wind. No towns. No shrines. Just the skelled wastes. Flat shelves of basalt and broken glass. A sky the color of cold iron. The kind of place the world forgot to name. Jack stepped out after me and the world got heavier. High radiant wasn't just more mana. It was presence. The imprint of a gate that had opened and left a shape behind. His aura settled like a second horizon. Iron chalk edges sketched in the air. The heat around him didn't glow, it decided. He flexed his left hand, and the air above his palm bent. Not flame. Not light. Something that made decisions change their mind. Requiem Ember, he said quietly, like a confession. A twist of color bloomed, wrong and beautiful, and every drifting fleck of dust that meant to fall near his palm simply didn't. They landed already finished, as if the falling had happened somewhere I wasn't invited. It wasn't gray. My gray writes which places touch. His ember writes which outcomes survive. You're stronger than Reverian, I said. No point lying to myself. Good, Jack said. I trained for you, not him. Valeria warmed at my hip. No stages, she murmured. This ground is honest. Do your work. I lifted my left hand and called the quiet I share with Luna. Lucent harmony. Tranquility spread like cool cloth on a fever. The skelled air stopped being petty. The ground agreed to be steady. That was for the world, not for him. For me, I turned on everything I could carry without breaking the floor. Sword laws I'd written this month until they lived in muscle, 9 circle circuits humming under skin, breath on 4s, Valeria's line as simple as it gets. No gray. Not yet. Ready? I asked. Jack's eyes were raw and steady at once. I have been for 3 years. He moved first. The Requiem Ember wasn't a fireball. It was a ribbon, thin, perfect, coiling from my ankle like a trip line laid by a god. I stepped and cut. First truth, no bounce, bite clean, and the edge should have met the ribbon and ended it. Didn't. The ember wrote no on the outcome where my edge bit first. My cut slipped a hair, like the world pretended my decision had never existed. Seraphina's pencil would have chirped drift. I didn't force it. I shrunk the truth. Hand bubble tighter than a fist. Law thinner than a breath. Valeria adjusted her balance on my palm like a cat picking a new perch. The second bite took. The ribbon split with a sound like a string snapping in another room. Jack was already on me, faster than before, weight and timing both singing high radiant. His footwork was clean. His hands carried both nihility and nirvana heat, white and violet, braided, with requiem inked into the braid like black handwriting on silk. He threw a crosscut. I met it and felt my counter try to become something gentler. His ember had reached for the decision inside my swing, deflect and return, and tried to turn it into deflect and stop. I let the return die, changed my mind mid-nerve, pivoted instead into shortest line. Chalk to chalk, no flourish, no second act. He expected the end I'd planned. I gave him a new start. My edge kissed his wrist. No blood, ember skin, thin as glass, but he felt it. Good, he said. It wasn't a taunt. It was grief and approval mixed together. He spread his fingers and wrote a circle of requiem around us. Flames that weren't flames bloomed. Petals of a color that your eyes want to call purple until your head hurts. Not heat. Edits. A ring that said, certain things don't happen here. Wind didn't pick up where it should. Pebbles didn't bounce when they landed. The world stopped doing little chores. I put harmony under my own feet. If his ember eats outcomes, then I don't promise any. No fancy steps that end at a named spot. Just movement that keeps deciding while it's happening. Valeria hummed in agreement and shifted the weight of her blade a fraction closer to the guard. We traded 6, then 12, then 30 touches that weren't quite hits and weren't quite misses. Every time I started a technique, his ember dipped a hand into the ending and tried to spill it. Every time he started a cage, I refused to acknowledge it as inevitable and cut the part that declared itself first. My sword laws, first bite, shortest line, carry through, exit clean didn't break. They adjusted mid-syllable. Then he showed me why high radiant mattered. He didn't throw power. He sustained it. Where my circuits sang at their comfortable peak, his shouldered more and asked for seconds. A double-layer spiral, nirvana outside, abyssal inside, wrapped in requiem ink, came down from above like a collar meant to claim my neck. I lifted Valeria to guard and reached for my most reliable cheat. Lightning in the muscles, a step that turns distance into a suggestion. The ember touched the destination and wrote not there. My lightning step landed 2 feet short. He was already there to meet me. His fist came like a piston. I rocked with it, took the energy into my hips, and dumped it into the ground, then brought the ground back up as a counter. Earth didn't quite want to rise. His ring had written against small chores, but harmony convinced it that we were still doing honest work. Stone answered. His boots skidded, just enough. Loosened harmony, he said, eyes flicking once at my feet. Cute. It's not for you, I said. We separated a breath and then collapsed the space between us again. He threw a requiem net, thin, wide, made of threads that didn't want me so much as they wanted to break all follow-through inside them. A little story. Everything inside here is incomplete. He meant to starve my carry-through law and make every cut chatter. I didn't argue with the net. I walked smaller truths inside it. First bite becomes first touch, becomes first grain. The law shrank to a point under my skin. The blade bit anyway because I told it one tiny thing, not 3 proud ones. The net hissed as if disappointed. Of course, Jack said, and caught my elbow with a requiem flare. He didn't stop my swing. He stopped the decision to angle it for his shoulder. My cut arrived harmless across his mantle. The ember wrote, no angle. I swore once and made my next cut shape angle last. He smiled and let me have the point. Learning. Chapter 951. Hellflame Emperor 3. He vanished. No glamour, just high radiant speed and a subtraction of friction where he wanted it. He reappeared at my back with a palm full of requiem pressed toward the base of my skull. Valeria snarled in my hand. Down. I dropped, angle collapsed, and stabbed backward with a stupid little reverse thrust that had no dignity and all the utility. It didn't have an ending for him to cancel. It was just metal in a place. He had to move. Good. He countered with something I hadn't felt before. A low thrum from the ember that wasn't about canceling my moves. It was about asserting his. A decree. This next flame will be the last decision in the space it touches. Requiem flared. A line drew itself from his palm to my heart, the world between temporarily agreeing that nothing else got to edit that line. I met decree with refusal. Not gray. That would have ended the lesson too early. I used the oldest truth I own. This line ends where I say. I layered it on Valeria's body. Not the world. Personal law, not universal one. The flame reached my rib, found that the last decision belonged to a sword, and blinked. It didn't die. It hesitated. I put the hesitation on the floor with the rest of our mistakes. We reset again, both breathing harder. He had more air left. High radiant does that. His reserves could feed this for hours. My mid-radiant body would start to complain eventually. So I stopped being polite. 9 circle circuits, full run. Lightning chained to muscle, gravity tucked under the heel, wind braided through the next 3 steps. Space bent a thumb width so his reeds arrive late. I framed one edge with deep dark whisper and lit the other with almost pure light, just enough to make the ember pick a side and be wrong. He answered with the thing he'd built, the power that belonged to him and not to his teachers. The requiem ember coiled around his shoulders and sank into his ribs. The air went very still. Requiem mantle, he said. Outcome tax. He lunged. Every exchange cost me something. A choice. Path. A tiny piece of what I meant to do skimmed off the top and turned into ash that fell at our feet. He was taxing my intent and turning the tax into weapon fuel. I cut smaller and faster and nearer. Taxes don't bite as deep when the economy is local. He grimaced and turned the mantle outward, letting it own a patch of the battlefield the size of a cartwheel. Inside the wheel, every choice wanted to end like he wrote it. Fine. I didn't go inside. I made him come out. I threw Godflash, no, not the big one, a thin sheet. Promise of what it could be. He tilted the mantle to eat the ending and leave the stair. He stepped through the holes he'd made in my move and almost took my ear. I bled a little. Felt like a contract signing. He smiled once, small and real. Round 2, he said. Round now, I answered. We stopped talking. He split the ember into 6 neat threads and wove them around my ribs like a harp. Every time I thought angle left, a thread plucked no. I stopped thinking angles. I moved pressure. I let Valeria drag my hips where she wanted. She knows lines better than I do. He tried to cancel my lightning steps destination again. I didn't give it a destination. I gave it a range. The step landed near somewhere good and became good on arrival. He frowned. He tried to break my carry-through by taxing the second motion more than the first. I bent the rule. Second motion begins before the first resolves. He tried to tax both. Taxes don't fit well when events overlap. He hissed in frustration. I went for his left knee with a nothing cut. Just a line in space. He wrote no on the intent inside it. I changed my mind mid-swing and hit his ankle instead. He snarled and wrote no across the floor. We both slipped. We both laughed. It was awful. Then we stopped laughing because the ground behind him turned to glass where the mantle leaked a mark I didn't want to see anywhere civilized. Enough. Valeria, I said out loud. Yes. Full plate. Armor plates unfurled from the blade, light, clean, not ostentatious. Locking over my forearms, shins, heart. Not to look big. To make truths easier to carry. The suit was a ritual you could walk in. I let harmony deepen until the air forgot how to lie. I tightened every small law until they were almost prayer. Then I moved and the world kept up. Jack met me with everything he had built despite his own regret. The wastes rang. His ember wrote on my endings. My edge erased his handwriting. His mantle taxed my choices. I paid with small coins and kept my big plans in my pocket. He flooded the field with nirvana/abyssal helixes that weren't about heat at all, they were about finality. I answered with water that refused to reach equilibrium until I said it could, with space that wouldn't anchor where he wanted unless it had my signature. Steel spoke to bone. Bone spoke back. A mile of glass spidered out from our feet. He pressed. High radiant reserves let him press forever. I felt the edge of the place where talent becomes stubbornness and stubbornness becomes need. Valeria's voice was very soft. You've learned everything you can learn at this speed. I nodded once, and Jack saw the nod, and some part of him flinched because he remembered a garden of myths and butterflies. No, he said, voice hoarse. I didn't answer. I opened a page. Not the garden. Not the whole book. Just 2 flat sheets of gray overlapping the air between us. Thin as rice paper, ordinary as a table. The wastes turned quiet in a way that made even the wind remember it used to be a story someone chose to tell. Jack's next thread of requiem reached for the ending of my cut and found there were 2 places the ending could be, both true, both touching. His ember couldn't write no on both. He stuttered. I stepped through the point where the 2 pages met and put my edge under his mantle, not on it. He saw it. He screamed and poured requiem until the sky shook. We moved. Chapter 952. Hellflame Emperor. 4. We moved. Jack's mantle pressed. My small truths held. The wastes kept score by laying new glass in spider tracks. He swam the ember like it was an extra set of joints. 6 threads combed my choices. Every time my mind wrote an ending, 1 thread flicked no. I stopped writing endings. I wrote starts. Valeria settled closer to the guard. Her hum low and steady. Soul resonance isn't a spell. It's my second gift. When I choose, when I'm close enough to feel a rhythm, it mirrors a sliver of someone's gift inside me for a breath or 3. Not theft. Not permanent. A temporary copy that runs on my rules. I touched his cadence and let resonance bite. Requiem ember came through. Thin. Imperfect. A reflection in rippled water. I didn't get the whole cathedral. I got a clause. A veto. A 1-beat ability to say, in his voice, not that outcome. He flicked a requiem ribbon at my ankle. Trip line laid by a god. I cut. First truth, hand-sized, and felt his ember reach for the ending to spill it. I mirrored the clause. Soul resonance wrote a micro no on his no. My cut didn't grow stronger. It just didn't get edited. The ribbon snapped with a sound like a string breaking in another room. Jack saw it. His eyes narrowed. You copied me. For a heartbeat. I said. It's all I need. He rolled the mantle outward. A ring of edits unfurled with a soft click. Inside it, pebbles refused to bounce. My breath almost forgot to finish the 3rd count. 9 circle, he said, voice low. Requiem litany, pallbearer's march. The ring taxed movement, not just intent. If I moved through, The march skimmed momentum and fed it into the ash gear over his heart. 9 circle circuits woke under my feet. Bahamut method, gravity loom. Invisible threads dropped from the sky and tied soft anchors into the ground in a grid like a child's string game. The loom tracked relative change and stored it. When the march skimmed, the loom returned a whisper. Not energy. Permission. The kind that keeps a step honest when a thief is skimming off the top. He layered a second litany. 9 circle requiem mass. Wake of silence. Sound didn't die. Conclusions did. The mass archived outcomes on contact and told new ones they were late to their own funeral. He stepped into that quiet and brought a helix of nirvana/abyssal down like a collar. Sword first bite, hand-sized. Then, 9 circle Bahamut method. Prism sanctuary. Lucent harmony framed in 6 planes of geometry. Not a dome sanctuary you carry. The prism didn't stop his helix, it refracted the claws inside it. My outcomes ran on my clock, not his. He grunted once. Of course you built a church. You built a tax office, I said. We all have hobbies. He pushed the mantle wider. The march skimmed every swing that looked like an answer. I cut coin-sized laws and kept my economy local. He dropped the wake of silence until even my knee's decision to lock carried a surcharge. Fine. 9 circle, Bahamut method. Starfall refraction. Circles pulsed under my boots. Tiny, stuttering, set by ugly sequence. Each time his mantle skimmed, the refraction fed a wrong path back along his skim. Not damage. Noise. It made his clerk misfile. He snarled and showed the thing he'd built to win, not to impress. Requiem mantle outcome tax. He lunged. Every exchange cost me a sliver of what I meant to do. Skimmed and crushed into ash that fed the gear. I mirrored the clause twice with resonance. 2 tiny vetoes that bought space, nothing more. Copying costs. My mirror stuttered, then cooled. Good. Use it like a scalpel, not a habit. He answered with a new 9 circle. The air went still. 9 circle requiem mass. Bell of no tomorrow. The gear turned. An inaudible bell swung. Every plan in a 10-pace circle tried to arrive early and die. The ground glazed. Valeria went quiet for a blink. Lucent harmony grounded me. Then I changed instruments. Aguirre diagram. Tide inversion. For currents, 3 delays, 1 drum. A water lattice prefers cycles over ends. The bell rang and Aguirre answered not yet. His policy frowned. He stacked more. Funeral constellation. Dirge of ash. Stars of intent lit along my most likely lanes. Step where a sane swordsman should and you pay pain as toll. Loom, I said, and stepped almost there. The loom paid with a stored mistake. Stars flared and died. Confused. Erebus from a pocket that smelled like winter. Perimeter holds. I'm catching shed outcomes before they breed. Try not to mint a new saint of bad ideas. Working on it, I said. Jack split the ember threads, 12 now, and stitched them into the dirt. A snare for follow-through. Every line Valeria left behind tried to crawl back and turn into fuel. Resonance again, brief, precise. I mirrored a different facet. His habit of reading the decision inside my motion. For one beat I read his. He reached to cancel angle. I wrote angle last and he grabbed air. We ping-ponged. The wastes wore it. He pressed me to the edge of an old lava river and widened the wake until even a pebble trying to tumble was forced to reconsider. I met it with Bahamut anchors bigger than I liked. Circuits sang close to red. Valeria's hum sharpened. Now, I put a page down. Not to erase him. To make a seam. Gray is 2 flat sheets of ordinary where stories get awkward. I set them at an angle only I could love. His next edit came on an ending that now had 2 mouths. Ember stuttered. Tax misfiled worse. Don't you dare, he hissed. Don't bring a cathedral to a library, I said. He overrode with rank and the page flexed. Twice, then it was paper again. I used both breaths. 9 circle, Bahamut method. 1,000-fold anchor. A forest of hair-thin, single-use anchors, each one owning a grain of air. Requiem hates certainties it didn't write. It spent tax to chew through 100 before it could breathe. Then a quiet art. God flash. Split horizon. No roar. A horizontal cut that belonged to 2 halves of a world for a heartbeat. His mantle caught the top story. My edge lived under it where the tax hadn't arrived yet. The cut kissed the gear. Hairline fracture. Jack didn't scream. He bit down and rang the bell again. A line of violet white ran down his cheek. His flames refused theater. His ember wrote pay anyway. He paid. Requiem mass, wake of silence. Closing right. The ring became a room, walls of edit, ceiling of tax. Inside, every plan checked a clerk with his handwriting. Breath on 4s. On 5s. Miserable 6s. 4s again. I found the seam. Valeria sang 1 note. I stepped through the 2 gray pages at an ugly angle. The seam in the wake met the seam between pages. 2 awkward truths shook hands and let me slip past the clerk. I arrived in his guard. He'd expected me at the door. I was in the hallway. I slid Valeria up past his elbow and down in a tiny arc that existed mostly to say hello to the fracture I'd already made. "Don't," he whispered. "Don't make me," I said. He made me. He threw his last new thing with everything high radiant lets you spend. 9 circle, Requiem Canticle. Sovereign wake. Not dragon sovereignty. A swollen policy that said, "No other voices in this circle unless I invoice them after." It ate the 1,000-fold anchor like a grinder, made my loom grind teeth, turned my prism into glass. He stepped forward like a man paying for his own execution. Resonance, full copy a sliver, not the fire. I mirrored one clause only, the hinge where his nirvana stillness and abyssal end negotiated and Requiem sat between them like a judge. For one beat, I owned the rule about unanimity. I wrote a note in his language. Unanimity requires consent. I did not consent. On top, I laid a 9 circle over it. Bahamut method, starfall refraction. Final. Orbits underfoot. Falling stars hit his ceiling and returned with receipts. Each invoice the wake filed hit a desk that had already stamped paid elsewhere. He roared wordless grief and brought his palm down. I raised Valeria and cut as gently as I could and still mean it. The gear cracked. The bell made a flat sound and died. He stumbled, didn't fall. High radiance saved bone. Blood came, human and honest. He looked up through ash and open eyes. "Again?" he asked. "One more," I said. We moved. Chapter 953, Hellflame Emperor, 5. He laid the funeral constellation again. The stars lacked their old zeal. The cracked gear taxed slower. My loom and refraction had lanes. The prism had teeth. I didn't try to outlast him. I stacked compression, art into art until the world had to agree or choke. God flash as veil. First bite inside the veil. Shortest line sewn down by 2 anchors. Carry through that began before it decided to exist. Exit clean buried in sheath. On top, 2 9 circles braided, ugly overhead and all. Bahamut, gravity loom, on the ankles. Agir, tide inversion, on the wrists. Feet had permission. Hands refused drama. He answered with a new choir. 9 circle, Requiem oratorio. Black procession. Masks rose, ash and intent carrying paperwork. Every time my blade completed a thought, a mask stamped void and tried to pass the void into the ember. I could play that for 5 seconds and then be a document. Soul resonance again. Copy only what helps, only for a breath. I mirrored the proof clause inside his procession. If you void, you must keep a record. Then I met it with my own 9 circle. Bahamut method. Archive of virtue. A library floor under my feet. Every honest cut leaves one mark the archive keeps. Mask stamped. The archive asked for their copy. They had none. Stamps fell through. Jack bared his teeth. "You're the worst kind of cheat. You invented taxes. Don't cry about audits." He didn't. He lunged. The Requiem ember stopped reading as editor and started writing as pen. A line from his heart to mine, meant to spend him to finish the sentence, a self-written end. Valeria's voice in my palm. Don't make his death her final kindness. I wouldn't. Gray pages down, not to erase him, to place a seam. Then, 9 circle Bahamut method. Seam kintsugi. 2 gray sheets like ceramic, a hairline of lucent harmony traced along the seam to make it one thing. His Requiem line reached and found no place to overwrite. It went past me into basalt and died drunk on its own importance. He blinked like a child, then ugly laughed. You glued paper with calm. He hurled his right hand up and spoke a thesis that makes old men leave rooms. 9 circle, dead sun thesis. Point where heat remembers God. It doesn't explode. It forbids return to baseline. Cuts inside it are permanent. No, I said. Gray would end it. I chose something else. Resonance, copy Nirvana's still heat alone. No abyss. No Requiem. Then I set it inside lucent harmony. 9 circle, lucent method. Quiet star. No glow. A point where cuts remain honest because they do not wish to be remembered. The dead sun pressed the quiet star, refused to be a story. Jack flinched like slapped by a child he loved. Then he smiled, thanks, hate. Please, stop in one look. And threw everything left. Requiem ember, last wake. Grief with a budget. Came for archive, loom, star, prism, seam. It wanted to turn me into a sentence that ended with ash. Respect for respect. No gray. God flash. 2 places. 1 cut that belongs to 2 coordinates. Valeria loves it because it's the only time I let her be pretty. I moved the world a hair under my foot and let the cut live in overlap. The last wake split and tried to close after. Archive asked for paperwork. Loom tied its ankles. Quiet Star gave it nothing to hold. Prism kept my breath clean. The cut landed across the mantle and chest. Not a bisect. A fold. The mantle tore. The gear shattered. Jack dropped to one knee and caught himself. High Radiant kept him from coming apart. Blood went down his chin, not dramatic, just present. He looked up, open for once. Please, he said. Not mercy. Meaning. There are clean kills. Clean refusals. This was a third thing. Erebus. I said. Bone rose, columns in an empty chapel. Not a prison. A brace. A cool place the Ember did not want to sit in. Erebus stepped from his shadow. Skull tilted like a polite bird. Heal him enough to keep the parts that can learn, I said. Of course, he said, and wrote 3 dead letters. Bleeding eased to something a conversation could carry. Jack coughed ash and read and something that wasn't either. The wastes took it like they take wind. You win. I win this, I said. Not you. He nodded like a student who finally understood a page and hated the handwriting. The gates of transcendence tilted near. Closer than last week. Weight gathered near my heart. One step and I could learn a new way to carry truth. Valeria squeezed my palm. Not on his back. I stepped away. The weight cooled. Gates faded to their patient platinum silver certainty. I'll earn them without turning Jack into a rung Alara wouldn't step on. Gray tugged my spine toward a thread that smelled like velvet and knives. Rose. I opened a lane through Ouroboros and didn't ask permission. Erebus nodded without needing thanks and closed the bone like hands around a candle that shouldn't go out yet. I stepped into quiet. A garden spread in terraces of dark stone and dew. Blue roses climbed trellises and spilled over paths, their petals bending light into soft wrong angles the way Rose likes. Edges gentled, corners honest only when you look twice. Wind moved, but only where the flowers allowed. The world kept its voice low. She stood at the center, back to me, hands loose at her sides. The air around her had changed, wider, steadier. A clean hinge shift in pressure. Not show. Rank. Mid-radiant. Her paradox didn't tug anymore, it agreed and then chose. Blue sigils pulsed under her feet and settled like they belonged there long before tonight. Pride hit first. Relief second. Then the tired hurt I hadn't had time to sort. I didn't call her name. I walked across the path the roses made for me and set Valeria's weight quiet against my hip. Loosened harmony softened the footfall I couldn't take back. When I reached her, I put my arms around her from behind, palms flat over the line of her ribs, cheek to her shoulder. No speech. Just weight and warmth and the promise that the fight was over here, at least for this breath. Her back rose against me once, sharp and shaking, then steadied. The blue roses around our feet opened in a hush like a crowd deciding to be kind. Her new rank settled fully then, mid-radiant ringing true under my hands. I closed my eyes. The garden held its breath. Chapter 954. Glasshouse Duel. The old glasshouse on Avalon's east ridge still stood. Steel ribs, shattered panes, a floor choked in black roses that had no right to grow in salt-poor soil. Wind hissed through the broken teeth of the roof. Every step crunched. Every shadow looked like a trap set years ago and left to wait. Evelyn waited at the center path, hands folded, veil dark as oil. Her presence pressed on the room the way a verdict presses on a defendant. No drama, just wait. Daughter, she said. Name's Rose, I said, and kept walking. Her lips tilted. Names are for tools. Tools get labels, then storage. Good, I said. Label this end. I let my gift breathe. Blue roses unfolded around my boots. Not many, just enough. The air steadied. Choices opened like doors cracking on their hinges. Evelyn's gift answered. Black roses climbed the rusted lattice, petals drinking light. The room narrowed with them. Options shrank. We didn't posture. We went to work. She moved first. 9 circles spun around her wrist. Clean, hard, textbook perfect. Black thorns gathered, twisted tight, and slashed at my midline. Oblivion Arc 9. Anything it crossed would be written out of the scene: ground, bone, air. I didn't meet it head on. I laid a blue petal in its path with one clear instruction. Be read twice. The arc hit the petal, stuttered, shaved a strip of floor instead of my ribs, and buried itself in dead soil. Parlor trick, she said. You taught the basics. I kept going. Her eyes didn't change. You were built to carry weight, not opinions. I put my palm up. 9 circles lit, sky blue, steady. Azure split 9, I said, and cut the room into 2 safe lanes that only I could see. I stepped into one, the path ahead opened. Her black petals snapped shut where I wasn't. She wrote a new problem. Black roses sank into the floor. The tiles under me went slick, then too rough, then vanished to trick the ankle. A floor made of bad decisions. I planted a blue rose at my heel and wrote one small rule. Steps count where I remember them. I remembered each step. The floor had to agree. She didn't blink. She lifted her left hand, and a brand showed on the back of it. Ink dark as space, lines like chains closing around a crown. The glass house's shadows went colder. Meet him, Evelyn said calmly. Erical, demon lord of sloth. A voice passed over my skin like a rough glove. Not the full presence, just a taste through contract. The black roses tightened. Straps of shadow crept from plant to plant and cinched the room into smaller shapes. Borrowed power, I said. Least, she corrected. I pay in results. Chains struck. Not metal, decisions turned into links. They coiled for my forearms and throat. I threw blue petals into the links. Each petal said the same thing. Pick one thing to hold. The chains tried to hold everything. They chose wrong and slipped. She nodded once, almost approving. You've grown. You never looked, I said and drove forward. 9 circle against 9 circle, simple and fast. I snapped a blue fold 9 at her. Space parted like opening a book, letting my ice dart cut the page and reappear behind her. She answered with thorn crown 9. A spinning ring of black bloom that erased the dart's endpoint and sent the trick back redrawn to bite me. I stepped aside. The return dart took a blue path and turned into a harmless gust. She tried to strangle the gust into stillness. I turned the stillness into a weight and dropped it on her ankle. She crushed it with a thought. Stop testing, she said, sounding bored. Bring the work that breaks you. I already brought it, I said. You're standing in it. She flicked her fingers. Chains combed the room. 3 snared my arm. A black rose bloomed above my shoulder and began to drink my range of motion. I didn't pull. Pulling plays to chains. I wrote a blue petal into the cuff that said, plain. Ends now. The cuff had to decide if it ended closing or ended opening. It opened. My elbow came free. She clamped harder with the contract. The brand on her hand glowed. Erical's whisper turned into pressure, the room's edges clicked like gears. The black rose's gift and the demon's binding stacked. Pathways narrowed to a pin. I opened a lane through the middle anyway. Blue roses marched to the center path and held the space. Still wasteful, she said, annoyed. Always multiplying roads like a child drawing mazes. Men get highways, I said. We get alleys. I build highways. She was done talking. Another 9-circle construct spun. Final revision's younger cousin. Not the full rewrite, but close. Lines etched in the air. Petals closed into a wheel the size of a door. If it touched me, my next cast would become hers. Not control, but theft. I didn't try to outmuscle the wheel. I went under it. Blue brace 9, I said. 3 lines that pin a room to fair. Attack speed normalized. Range honest. No free steals. She pushed against the brace with Erical's chains. The brace groaned but held. The brand flared. My teeth rang. See, she said. Leverage. I gave her mine. A clean, direct 9-circle sequence. Nothing clever. Frost Lance 9 overlaid with Gravity Comb 9. Cold to bite, weight to crush. She ate the frost with a black bloom, stripped the weight with the brand, and sent the remains back as the start of a net. Almost, she said. That's the word you say when you're about to lose, I answered. She finally got angry. It didn't show on her face. It showed in the number of black roses. They multiplied at once, eating the light. Seams crawled over the steel ribs. The whole glasshouse became a trap. I let my gift widen. Blue roses opened behind me, beside me, ahead of me. The room breathed with me instead of with her. The floor steadied under my feet. The wind that wasn't there stopped lying. 9-circle to 9-circle turned into gift to gift. Hers closed. Mine opened. Chains against lanes. We pressed. She was good. She stayed on me with clean timing and ugly tricks. A black thorn caught my shoulder and erased a line of skin. A chain bit my hip and turned a step into a stumble. I paid both and kept moving. Stop running, she said. I'm walking at you, I said and did. She tried a new angle, voice soft, ugly words. You're nothing without me. I built the frame. Your decoration. I set one blue rose between us with one sentence. I am not your work. The rose burned bright enough to tint the chains. She frowned at that. Not hurt. Inconvenienced. Erical, she said, and the contract's pressure doubled. The brand's lines crawled up her arm. A black crown sketched itself over her hair. The chains surged. I felt the first tug in my chest. The pull that wants you to agree with the person who raised you, even if agreeing kills you. I let the feeling exist. Then I cut it off and threw it away. Round 2, I said. Her crown closed like a trap. I stepped forward to meet it. Chapter 955. Blue verdict. She brought the brand down like a hammer. Black chains fused into a collar midair and dropped. If it set, the next thing I cast would become oracles. I raised my circles not to throw power, but to set the room's baseline. Azure Field 9, I said. Not a domain, Radiant doesn't do domains. A field. Fairground. Rules. Equal friction. Honest weight. No stolen endings. The collar hit the field and stalled like an engine taking bad fuel. I didn't stand there admiring it. I attacked where her contract needed to breathe. 9 circles spun. Blue Sever 9. A straight cut spell, no flourish. Its only job. Cut a binding without exploding the person wearing it. The blade of it wasn't steel. It was a blue line that wanted to be kind and wouldn't apologize for not being cruel. I aimed at the thin strand from brand to crown. Evelyn saw it, of course. She shoved the strand sideways with a black rose, turning the cut into a miss. The rose hissed as it took the hit and healed. Cheap, she said. Safe, I said. She countered with Null Bloom 9. Black petals that cancel the sentence inside the next cast they touch. She threw 3 at once to box me. I responded with Step Clause 9. A short teleport that chooses among 3 pre-approved safe arrivals. The blooms ate one option, the second closed. I took the third and landed at her flank. She tried to rake me with the brand. I caught her wrist in a blue lock that didn't hold the bone, it held the decision to strike. For one breath, her hand forgot that it wanted to move. She broke it the next breath. Low Radiant versus Low Radiant favors the one who spent more years choosing to be hated. She had. It didn't matter. Her pattern was on the table now. Look at yourself, I said. You still think I'm a pen. You're a pen with longer ink, she said, and drew 9 circles that braided with oracle's pressure until the air whined. Let's see how much. She spoke a word that wasn't human. The brand flashed. Black roses across the house opened at once. The collar reformed in the ceiling and fell again, wider, lined with barbs that ate angles, not skin. I didn't try to dodge it. I finished the sentence I'd been writing since I was 12 and too afraid to speak above a whisper. Blue Garden 9, I said. Not a domain, just a room where my gift feels at home. Blue roses filled the glass house from ankle to waist. Nothing dramatic. Petals touched chains and wrote simple edits. Hold only one thing at a time. Don't invent rules. Leave space to breathe. The collar hit the garden and faltered. The barbs chose one target each and ran out. Evelyn stared at the room as if it were a rude guest. You brought a garden to a fight. You brought a leash to a daughter, I said. Tool, she corrected automatically. Not anymore, I said, and the shift came. Gates don't always thunder. Sometimes they click. Weight settled through my spine. The air sharpened. The blue roses closest to me deepened a shade and stayed open without my attention. Circles of magic ran smoother, louder, with more teeth. The field bent toward my gift the way a table dips toward a bowl when you set it down too hard. Mid-radiant. It wasn't a light show. It was a sentence finishing itself. Evelyn felt it. She hid the fear perfectly, which is how I know it was real. You should have remained small, she said, and drove Ericle's brand at my throat. I conceded nothing. Sever now, I told the blue line in my hand, and it cut. This time it bit. The strand from crown to brand snapped like old thread. The black crown flickered. Ericle's voice snarled over my skin and vanished. The chains lost the demon's backing and dropped a foot. Evelyn didn't flinch. She tried to swap the wound. Exchange, she said, her favorite cheat. Trade injuries. Make my cut hers, her brand mine. I'd waited for it. Not with me, I said quietly, and wrote the smallest line of all. My life is not hers. Blue ink. No flourish. The swap skidded across it and failed. We were close now. Black petals trying to eat blue. Blue petals refusing to be a meal. 9 circle math stacked until the circles blurred into habit. She threw Oblivion Sheaf 9. A fan of erasing cuts. I split it with blue split and let half die in harmless air. She whipped a chain from my ankle. I stepped inside it and let it fall around my calf without closing, because I wrote you miss on the inside of the loop. She aimed for my eye with a thorn. I blinked and wrote, after on the thorn's edge. It arrived late. Stop it, she said through her teeth. Stop writing over me, I said. She drew her last card. Not a spell. A line. Arthur will die, she said flatly, and sent the words toward my focus like a dart driven by hate. The line hit. It always does if you love anyone. It didn't divert my hands. It hardened them. Then I build something he can stand on, I said, and finally took her guard apart. The finishing move wasn't pretty. It wasn't meant to be. I put one blue rose against her sternum, the kind that grows only when you tell the truth and mean it. Then I pushed. The rose didn't explode. It bloomed inward. Blue light filled the space between bone and brand, between borrowed power and old pride. It wrote one thing and only one. No more. The brand cracked down the center. Ericle's shadow let go. Every black rose in the glasshouse browned at the edges and turned brittle. Evelyn staggered. She reached for her last trick, control by name. Daughter, she said. Not yours, I said and closed. The blue bloom finished. Her knees hit the broken tiles. Her eyes stayed level with mine until the end, still calculating, still trying to find a way to turn this into a lesson I would be forced to remember. No more, I repeated softer, and her head bowed. Silence took the glasshouse in a single breath. I stood still. Then I walked the room, snipping dead black vines with quiet blades of blue sever and letting the garden clear itself. The steel ribs showed again. Wind moved. For the first time in years, the glasshouse felt like a place instead of a test. Mid-radiant settled. My circles hummed like a machine that had finally found the right gear. The blue roses around my boots stayed open without me thinking about it. I didn't cry. Not because I'm strong. Because I had work to do with my hands. Closing arcs, canceling residues, burning the last of Ericle's taste from the corners. The cleanup took 10 minutes. Felt like 10 years. When I was done, I left the glasshouse and took the path I always take when I need to breathe. I walked to the terrace above the river where the first blue rose I ever grew still lives in a cracked pot. Night was honest there. The city hummed like a living thing. My garden knew my weight and let me in. I sat on the stone bench. My hands shook once and then stopped. Footsteps. A presence at my back that the world always leans toward. I didn't turn. I didn't need to. Arthur's arms slid around my ribs from behind, strong and careful. He set his cheek against my shoulder and said nothing. I let my head tip back until it touched his. The blue roses opened wider and turned the night a shade kinder. That was enough. Chapter 956. Thread through the crack. I found her in the blue garden she keeps for herself. Petals still, air clean. A place where bad days soften at the edges. Rose stood among the roses with her back to me, shoulders straight like she was holding up the sky by force of will. You did it, I said. She didn't turn. I did. I slid my arms around her waist from behind and felt the tension leave an inch at a time. Up close I could taste new power. Her mana had stepped up, cleaner, heavier. Mid-radiant now. Earned, not gifted. She called you a tool, I said. She always did. Rose answered, voice even. Now she can't. We stayed there until her breathing matched mine. Then the work pulled at both of us again. Evelyn's last spell left a thread, I said. Your paradox bloom and my gray both felt it. It isn't pointing at Avalon. Rose lifted her hand and a single blue petal hovered above her palm, quivering. It's pointing between. Someone anchored a fissure and hid the city on the other side. The Order's nest, I said. Not a room. A city. She nodded once. Let's cut it out. I pinged a courtesy loop to all 5 powers south, north, west, east, central. 1 line each. Following a spatial fissure linked to the Order of the Fallen Flame possible strike, please hold corridors clear. The replies came quick. Souths copy norths, sky lanes open wests. Send coordinates easts. Observers on standby centrals, authority granted. Avoid magistrate paths. Good. No politics in my way for once. I pulled gray up just enough to read the world's seams. Rose fed the blue petal into the air it spun and tugged. The line it drew wasn't straight. It slipped under rivers, around wards, skated along old ley lines like a thief that knows every alley. The petal stopped over a dead canyon 2 countries west. Ashbluff territory. Long strip of broken stone and bad wind. Nothing lived there by choice. The cliff face at the end of the gorge looked ordinary until Gray told the truth. Pressure bending where it shouldn't. Echoes landing where there was no room for echoes. A seam. Here, Rose said. I sent one more ping. VYR for perimeter. Redeemers for cleanse. Erebus for anything we shouldn't touch. 2 minutes, VYR answered. 2 is enough, I said. The fissure wasn't a door. It was a crack glued open with sloth sigil staples. Iron hooks sunk into reality, each stamped with Ericle's sleepy crown. The Order had turned the cliff into a hinge and taught it to forget the word close. Lucent harmony, I said, laying calm over the rock. The sloth push eased just enough to think straight. Rose's blue roses climbed the staples and wrote release across each one in a clean hand. Hooks that had sat for years remembered they were metal and not law. They loosened. Gray, I told the seam. Open. It opened like a book that didn't want to, and then did. We stepped through into a city. Not huge, no sky towers, but real. Streets, forges, shrines, barracks, markets. Ward lines stitched like spiderwebs. Sloth hung over everything like humidity, smoothing edges, slowing thought. And people. Hundreds. A lot of them trained. This wasn't a hiding hole. It was a capital. The order never left, Rose said quietly. They just moved sideways. VYR came in behind us with a tight outer ring, helmets down, visors black. Perimeter on the crack, she said. No leaks. Erebus? I asked. His voice arrived from a shade that didn't exist. Here, he said. Redeemers? I asked. 2 cadres, VYR answered. 1 to follow your heels. 1 to hold the hinge. Good, I said. Core targets. We cut the spine. Rose pointed, already reading the weave. For anchors. Money Hall Forge Grid Chapel Square Command Vault. Break those and the rest falls loud. We moved. The Money Hall looked like a bank anywhere. Counters, ledgers, polite murder behind glass. The difference lived below. A sloth engine chugged under the floor, ritual plates, blood drains, a contraption that turned debt into leverage into power. I didn't give them speeches. Valeria drew clean circles and laws I trust lived in my hands. First bite. Shortest line. Carry through. The front-line guards came fast and fell faster. 9 circle spells sang under my skin. Kinetic lash 9 to pluck knives from hands. Gravity shear 9 to tilt the floor against a charge. Windlock 9 to make running forward feel like trudging through syrup. Rose starved their engine in 1 pass. Blue roses wrote Profit 0 across their scheme. The ritual plates stopped adding. The room remembered it was a room. VYR's people swept, tied, tagged. Redeemers slid lantern light under every desk and through every book. Sloth stains hissed and let go. Next, I said. The forge grid ran hot and wrong. Sloth seep had soaked the steel, telling metal to stay lazy. Workers wore rings with the crown of Eracle. A radiant foreman stepped into our path with a smile that didn't reach his eyes and lifted both hands to dump a heat-blind fog over the lane. Loosened harmony, I said, and the fog refused to be stupid. 9 circle heat sink, I added, and the floor drank the rest. He tried a sloth bind, thick, soft, convincing. Rose wrote 1 task over it. The bind shrank to a strap. I cut it. Then I cut the ring off his finger. He stopped smiling. We kept it clean. I carried steel and simple spells. Rose killed contracts on sight. In 15 minutes, the forge grid ran on gears and fuel instead of oaths. Redeemers combed the dorms. VYR's people found the side doors and closed them forever. Chapel Square was worse. Not a church. A courtyard with 7 pits and a black stone table worn smooth by sacrifice. Sloth priests chanted. A demon lord icon hung in the air. The lazy crown, eyes hooded, watching. Leave the icon alone, I told everyone. It's bait. We hit the priests like a hammer that had learned manners. I used space and force, space stitch 9 to keep their jumps honest, force ladder 9 to step through a wall of bodies without making a human mess. Rose put later on any spell that needed now. Their chanting drifted a beat behind their intent, then 2 beats, then useless. The icon flickered. A single blue rose kissed its crown. It went out. Redeemers flooded the pits with pure light. You don't burn sloth. You unstick it. They unstuck it, inch by inch until the stones stopped sighing. VYR's people took the square and put up barriers with plain labels. No entry. Cleaning. 2 cores left. The command vault sat under a plain hall. The door was a contract written on steel. Rose looked once and wrote a blunter sentence over it. Open. The door forgot whose side it was on. Inside, 20 radiant mages, 3 bishops, 1 general, hard eyes, bad hands. In the center, a black stand held a square box with a lock that wasn't a lock. Containment, Erebus said. He didn't move closer. He never rushes the worst thing in the room. They hit us as a unit. Full 9 circle salvos. Overlapping. Chain lightning nets. Sandglass binds. Heat snaps. Sloth rains. The kind of coordinated fire you only see from people who train together longer than they think about dinner. I answered with my own. Lightning 9 for muscle. Gravity 9 under heel. Wind 9 for feet. Stonework 9 to ask the floor to behave like a partner. Deep dark 9 to cut their sight lines. Pure light 9, not a blast, a comb to stop residue clinging to my team. All while my sword wrote small truths. Bite, line, carry, exit. Rose stripped their clever bare. Blue roses climbed their circles and wrote mean little rules. No mirror. No swap. No echo. Their strongest tricks hit their own gloves and blew out numb fingers. The general tried to open a gate under me. Valeria's flat told that spot of space no. The gate tried somewhere else and forgot where that was. On beat 5, the front line folded. On beat 7, the bishops were on the floor with VYR's knee on one throat and her hand on another wrist. On beat 9, the general tried to grab the box. I was already there. I eased the lid. Gray made a small room around my hands and the container so the rest of the world didn't have to breathe this with me. Inside, a glass vial with dark liquid. Not much. Enough to end cities. It wasn't heat. It was weight. Miasma so dense the air bent. My soul resonance, my second gift, reached for it on reflex, greedy for understanding. I cut the reflex like it was a hand that wasn't mine. Valeria's voice slid into my head. Steady. Don't copy this. I won't, I said out loud. Rose cupped her palms around the vial without touching it. Blue Roses wrote 3 rules on the air. Stay in glass. Don't multiply. Be quiet. The pressure eased a notch. Erebus opened a reliquary grown from pale bone. Give it, he said. No drama. He never does when it matters. I set the vial. The reliquary closed. The room stopped trying to crawl out of its own skin. It's as heavy as the infernal Armis, I said. Maybe worse. Worse, Erebus said. The Armis is a blade. This is a knuckle. The general laughed once. You carry death now, he said. It will call to its owner. Let it try, Erebus answered, and tucked the reliquary into a page that didn't exist. It can be lonely a long time, VYR reported from the door. Outer cordon holds. Runners tagged. No civilians spill. Your crack is quiet, but not for long. Then we end it, I said. We didn't erase the whole pocket city. That takes weeks and courts and ledger work. But we broke the spine. Money dead. Forges honest. Square clean. Vault emptied. The rest would wither. I sent the tally to the 5 powers. Fisher breach confirmed order core city. Hit 4 anchors down. Heavy artifact contained survivors fleeing into outer branches. Central's reply came fastest. Bring me the ledgers. North. Sky clear. West. Send your list. We'll hunt the runners. East. Scholars ready to help seal. South. We'll pay for Redeemer overtime. Keep going. We're not done, Rose said quietly. No, I agreed. But Avalon sleeps safer tonight. We walked back to the seam. Redeemers sealed the last sloth marks with careful light. VYR's people started cataloging without complaint. Erebus stood at the hinge and wrote sigils that mean forget in the old dead languages. I turned to the city one last time. It looked smaller already. Close it, I told Gray. The crack folded. The canyon wind hit us like a real thing again. Rose leaned against me. Thank you, she said. Always, I said. We didn't give speeches. We started sending names to people who move budgets and guards. That's how you kill a cult that can rival an empire. You break its power and then you stop it from regrowing. When we finally got back to Avalon, the blue garden was waiting. Rose stepped into it like home. I followed, tired in the right way. We'd cut the root. The branches would take time. Time we finally had. Chapter 957. Aftershock. The blue garden held for one more breath. Then my slate buzzed once against my hip. North. Anomaly on your ring. I didn't let go of Rose. It's fine, I said, and made it true. I pulled Lucent Harmony up around my hand and the ring, cool, steady calm, and let a thumb of gray touch the pocket where the vial sat. The pressure spike flattened. The call lost teeth. Rose's fingers tightened over mine. It tried to ring home? Something like that, I said. Not again. We stepped out of the greenhouse and straight into Ouroboros ops. No cameras. Steel table, paper maps, people who fix things. Cecilia had already stacked folders into lanes. We cut the spine, she said without preamble. Now we break the legs. Operation Emberfall, I said. For days. Hit branches on all continents. No speeches, no leaks. We don't let them reorganize. Elias tapped a clean map. Targets grouped by function: money, rights, transit, knives. West and Central have the densest clusters. East has the deepest sanctums. Assignments, I said. Cecilia, run the board from the palace. You have authority on my stamp. Serafina, take Mount Hua to East Sanctums and ice any ritual rooms. Reka, you and Jean crack Westports and river caches. Rachel, Redeemers lead every entry. Cleanse before anyone takes a breath. VYR, hold corridors and bring runners down. Rose and I will peel the archive sites and command cells. North, Elias asked. Lucifer Sky Controllers keep our lanes clear, I said. He already opened the corridor. Erebus set a slender bone box on the table. This sits here and listens, he said. If anything speaks your name from the vial, I will hear the echo. His eyes flicked to my ring. He didn't argue about where the glass lived. Good. We moved on a bell. First cut. A textile mill 2 districts off the river. 3rd basement bricked at the back. Ward paint looked like mildew. The seam behind it was clean as a lie. Redeemers first, Rachel said. 2 lanterns opened a hand width. The air lost its stick. VYR's squad took the corners. I drew a circle and cut a door without flash. Inside. Shelves, ledgers, and a chalkboard that had told 1,000 people how to move money without the magistrates noticing. 2 radiant clerks and 1 mage in a plain robe with wicked fingers. He hissed and snapped a ring. Sloth bind rolled toward us like heavy cloth. Loosened harmony, I said, and the bind forgot how to be convincing. Windlock 9 pinned his stance. Kinetic Lash 9 plucked his ring from his hand and sent it skittering to Rachel, who caught it with a cloth and dropped it into a copper jar. Reka wrote 2 small curves in the air. Any hidden doors in that room stopped pretending. Rose heeled the chalkboard the other way. She grew 3 blue roses and wrote audit across the math. Columns became confession. Elias's people would love that. 2 minutes, VYR said in my ear. First Street is quiet. West reports contact. On to the next, I said. We hit 7 more rooms before noon. A bathhouse cell where the steam itself was a ward, a river barge office that ran donations, to their forges a shrine painted over as a tea hall, an old armory with fresh oil, a school for handlers, a backroom sanctuary with a glass-topped pit, a clean office in a clean tower with very dirty books. The rhythm held. Redeemers combed, simple 9-circle work cut noise out of the fight. Rose snapped contracts. Valeria's small truths drew lines and ended them. By midday, West chimed. Jean had 3 port caches down. No civilian bleed. Serafina sent a single line. 2 sanctums, iced. Which meant she'd done it perfectly. Rachel logged 17 sloth rings bagged and 3 pits unstuck. Cecilia's messages kept coming in tight. Court warrants where we needed them. Lane holds where we didn't. Budget lines opening like obedient doors. The ring warmed again. Not heat, pressure like someone thumbing a bruise. The bone box on the table in ops clicked. Erebus looked up from a shadow that was not a shadow. They are testing the tether on the blood, he said across the link. Not with power. With math. Cut it, I said. Already writing, he answered. But it is yours to refuse, not mine. I stepped aside into a quiet stairwell and did it the plain way. Gray around the pocket, 2 pages touching. Harmony over gray so the pocket stayed calm. Then soul resonance, soft, careful. Brushing only the tether pattern, not the blood. Gifts let me hear other people's tricks. I listened to the knot the order had put on the vial, an address and a signature and a way to count answers, and wrote a new name on top of their name. Mine. Then I threw a decoy, a gray echo in empty space. If the tether called again, it would be calling a wall. The pressure eased. The bone box clicked once, then went still. Done, Erebus said. Your refusal was polite. They will get angry. They can mail it to complaints, I said and cut the link. Afternoon took us to a branch that tried to bite back. A low radiant cell with a brick floor painted to look like nothing. 6 mages, 1 binder, ugly coordination. They threw full 9-circle volleys the second we stepped through. Chain lightning and heat snaps wrapped in sloth reins. I led with stonework 9 and the floor answered. I gave VYR a clean lane down the middle. She took it like war was her day job, which it is. Rose wrote no echo across their clever timing, and their second volley tripped on their first. Reka slid 3 characters on her own skin and hit like a hammer. Rachel's lantern combed the stain out of the air and made the room honest again. One of them, the binder, reached for a stopgap oath with both hands. His ring flared black. I stole the shape of the oath with soul resonance before it finished, put it on a shelf inside my head where I put bad ideas, and cut the ring off his finger. It's done, I said. Hands behind. We took the ledgers and the box they didn't want us to touch. VYR cuffed everyone who could still walk. A redeemer tagged the room. Clean 48H. People obey boring signs. The day rolled. Branches went dark. Calls came in. South paid for redeemer overtime. Central opened the archive vaults to our auditors without haggling. East sent 2 array scholars to help seal the fissure. West sent names of runners they were hunting out in the marsh towns. North kept the sky lanes boring. At sundown, Cecilia's face appeared on the table screen. No makeup, hair up, eyes hard. Varus has warrants on 3 nobles. He wants you present. Tomorrow, I said. Tonight we finish the list. 2 more, Elias said, tapping paper. 1 is nothing. 1 is either nothing or a problem. Start with the problem, I said. A dry goods warehouse. Clean. Great placement near a magistrate route. Nothing suspicious on paper. That's what made it suspicious. We came in on the roof, Reka's favorite. Ladder hatch, quiet drop. The smell hit first. Not rot. Like an old church and a bad secret. Redeemers opened both lanterns. The smell peeled away. A hidden trapdoor in a spotless floor opened 3 inches on its own and thought about playing innocent until VYR sat on it. On me, I said. Below. A vault with a table, 5 stools, and a brand new shrine to Erical painted in paint that never dries. A woman in gray robes bent over the table, hands moving fast. Not a priest. A bookkeeper. Don't move, Vyr said. She kept moving. Her wrist turned. A sloth seal slid toward her palm. Last-ditch oath rune, ugly and effective. I didn't give her time to put it on. Valeria drew a short, straight line and took the seal and the top of the table with it. The rune cracked in midair and fell in 2 pieces into Rachel's jar. The woman sagged. You can't kill us all, she said. No, I said. But we can kill your budget. We took her, the books, the private stamps, the pretty seal set meant for magistrate documents. Central would hate that part most. Back at Ouroboros, the map finally looked the way I wanted. Red pins gone. Black pins bagged. Blue pins posted for court. I took a breath and felt the ring go tight against my skin again. This time it wasn't a test. It was attention. Not the demon lords. Too clean for that. Not a sloth push. Too bright. Lysantra's tone had the taste of silk and knives. This was different. Sharper. Familiar. A feminine voice spoke in the room without using the room. You took something heavy, Alisara said, calm, amused. Cecilia's jaw tightened. Rachel's eyes narrowed. Rose stood a little straighter and didn't let go of my sleeve. I did, I said. You should stay away from it. I won't. A beat. Then, plain truth I did not like. I found a way to kill lust. You'll hate it. The line cut. No echo. No trace. Alisara had always been good at hanging up first. Later, I said. We finished tonight. We ran the last branch without drama. Vyr set hard posts on the Fisher Canyon. Redeemers chalked the last stain shut with tired hands and no complaints. Serafina came back with frost on her sleeves and no blood on her boots. Ops thinned. People ate. Paper moved. I stood looking at the map until the red pins were gone and the room smelled like ink, tea, and tired humans doing their jobs. Go see her, Cecilia said, not looking up from her stack. She'll say she's fine. She's not. She's more than fine, I said. But I will. I stepped out and took the quiet hall to the greenhouse that never makes the tour. The door opened on first touch. Blue roses. Night air. Rose standing with her back to me, shoulders down for the first time all day. I didn't say anything. I walked up and wrapped my arms around her waist from behind, and she leaned into me like she'd been waiting for that exact angle. Her manna was heavier now. Cleaner. Mid-radiant, steady as a pulse. You smell like ink, she said. You smell like home, I said. We stood like that until the palace clocks ticked through a minute we could keep. My ring warmed once against her wrist. Not a call. A reminder that we were holding something even a demon lord would notice. Tomorrow had its own problems, Varus warrants, West's runners, East seals, Alisara's bad idea. Tonight, I held the woman who had broken her mother's chain and our city's worst habit on the same day. In the garden she had made for days like this. The blue roses didn't move. The air stayed clean. We let it. Chapter 958. A bruise with memory. The blue garden held its breath for us. Moonlight stitched through the glass. The roses stood very still. And the palace clock's 2 courtyards over remembered how to be quiet. Arthur's arms circled my waist from behind, warm, steady. And the whole terrible, busy day finally stepped back far enough that I could hear myself think. Still hurt. Not the clean pain of a blade or the bright sting of a spell. A bruise with memory in it. Evelyn was never my mother. She wore my mother's place. Before I turned 5, she acted as Count Springshaper's wife. My father's wife in the eyes of the house and the empire's polite ledgers. She braided my hair. She taught me the elegant names for colors. She whispered goodnights in a voice I trusted because I was 3 and that's what 3-year-olds do. Years later, after my gift woke early and wild, she changed to steal me. Not to hold me. To take me. Charlotte stopped her in the courtyard with chalk still wet on the stones. Charlotte Archmage Tower Master. My aunt. Evelyn's sister. The air smelled of iron and rain. Charlotte sealed my gift with hands that shook after and told me it was only sleeping. Evelyn left because she could not prize me out of Charlotte's circle. The seal held. The world went on insisting Evelyn was gone. We both learned what a lie can do if you give it a decade. Today ended her for real. I did well, right? I asked. The words were small, a little younger than 24. Perfectly? Arthur murmured, chin on my shoulder. Maybe more than perfectly. I laughed once, thin but honest, and leaned into him. His work ring had warmed earlier when that vial tried to remember its address. He'd smothered the call with lucent harmony and a thumb of gray. Erebus left a bone box humming on a steel table to listen for anything that dared say Arthur's name the wrong way. We cut the spine. We broke the legs. Operation Emberfall turned red pins to black bags and blue court posts. Somewhere out there, Cecilia was still making courts move like she pressed the right gears. Rachel was cataloging sloth rings in copper jars. Redeemers were writing clean in chalk the air believed. Serafina would be folding frost off her cuffs. Alisara had hung up with a sentence that tasted like knives. I found a way to kill lust. You'll hate it. Stop thinking, Arthur asked softly. I'm trying, I said. But my head is loud. Then we'll give it something gentler to play. His hands didn't hurry me, he never does. He just reminded me where my body ended and this night began. I turned to face him. Even in the greenhouse's blue light, his eyes were the same clear azure I'd noticed at 15 in Mythos Academy's atrium, when banners snapped with first-day wind and the placement screen threw everyone's future 3 stories high. He was rank 8 in Class 1 then, quiet and too observant for his own safety. A commoner walking like he'd taught himself how to take up exactly as much space as he could defend. I was Class 1B, Count Springshaper's daughter with my crest pinned to code. Posture measured in angles old houses approve of. Our empire runs on maglevs and hollow feeds and guild payrolls that ping your slate by the minute, and also on hereditary ledgers, wax seals, and arranged dinners where supply chains look like seating charts. No one trains you for meeting the person who makes both calendars feel like suggestions. I sat next to you at lunch on purpose, I said, because remembering us was kinder than remembering her. I liked how you broke those constructs in the practical. You did it like you'd practiced under a kitchen lamp for years. He smiled, a small, unruly thing. You talked to me when everyone else practiced not seeing me. I never liked that game. I nudged him with my brow. By the end of the year, we were already impossible. Midwinter dueling exam, he corrected, amused. You put me on my back in the ranker's circle and offered me your hand in front of everyone. They told me a lady shouldn't, I said. That you might pull me down. You did anyway, he said. And I did not pull you down. You've been ruining bad advice for me ever since. We stood with that until the ache shifted, less a blade, more a map. He brushed a curl behind my ear. Tell me what part hurts. That I wanted something from her at the end, I said. Knowing what she did. What she tried to do. The courtyard was still in me. Charlotte's chalk. Evelyn's hand reaching. My father's voice breaking. You were a child when she taught you to expect gentleness, Arthur said. Wanting it again doesn't make you foolish. It makes you honest. A tear slid. I let it. I could have pulled a trick. Paradox Bloom will happily turn pain into puzzle if I let it. But tonight the garden asked for quiet and Arthur asked for truth, and I am trying to be a person who gives both. I wanted her to say my name and mean me, I said. Not the gift. Not a plan. She never will, he said without cruelty. But she also doesn't get to decide what that name means now. I rested my forehead to his. My engagement ring, steel with a seam of blue, clicked soft against his cheekbone. We said yes on the academy roof because he likes symmetry and I like that about him. I'm 24. So is he. The house stewards keep sending fabrics and guest lists. The imperial calendar keeps asking for a date. I keep ignoring both because today needed warrants, not cake. Tomorrow needs them again. Do you remember the spring festival? I asked. When I took your hand in public? His mouth crooked. Your father stopped breathing for a full second. He loves me, I said, saying it steadied me. He didn't know how to love you yet. He learned. Arthur's voice warmed. He calls me son now and forgets to sound surprised. We let that sit. My father had messaged before midnight. A blurry photo of his tea beside one of my greenhouse roses, and proud of you, little star. He is a brave man in an empire that teaches men like him to be strategic instead. I should say the hard part, I said, because he knows I keep it in a separate box. He waited. He never forces latches. You're dating others, I said. I'm not. Most days that sits clean in me. Some days jealousy hisses in my ribs and gnaws wires for fun. He didn't flinch. I told you before I asked you to marry me. I'd be exact and honest with everyone. I wouldn't ask you to be less to make space for what I want. I meant it. You're my constant, Rose. The point the needle returns to. It helps when you say it, I admitted. I chose this. I chose you. I don't share well, but I trust you. And I trust the woman I am with you more than I trust that hiss. We'll tend it like anything alive, he said. When it hisses, we feed it truth and time. I barked a laugh. Responsible adult, says the boy who jumped the east wall to get me street noodles after curfew. Rank 8 in 1A, he said primly. Walls were suggestions. And I was the Count's daughter in 1B, and I still ate those noodles on the wall because they were hot and perfect and you looked at me like I was allowed to enjoy them. I still look at you like that, he said simply. The ache folded another inch. I lifted a petal from the nearest rose. Blue light threaded it. Paradox Bloom likes making loud things legible. I wrote a small word in the air with it. Enough, and let the petal settle on his sleeve. He watched it fall like it mattered. That's the kind of man he is. Tomorrow, he said, meaning warrants on noble doors with Varus seal, marsh runners, East's fishers, North sky lanes, and Alisara's knife-bright idea. Tomorrow, I agreed. We'll argue with a demon lord's title until it learns to listen. And tonight, he said, we remember why we picked the hard work. Because we met at 15 and you made me sit with a boy the ledger didn't think I should see. I said. Because you let me be strong without making me a trophy. Because when the world said Evelyn was dead, and then said she was a ghost, and then finally said her name with fear, you looked at me and said Rose, and meant me. He glanced past me at the roses. You built this place, he said. I just learned the door. I looked over his shoulder at the city. Maglev's drew soft comets. The crown tower projected its old crest on new steel. Our empire breathed. Modern in its lights, medieval in its knives. Our work mattered in it. So did this. Take me to the roof tomorrow, I said. I'll smuggle indecent hot chocolate, he said. With marshmallows your etiquette tutors hated. I'll bring a blanket and 3 stories I am absolutely not supposed to tell about court people with terrible shoes. No maps for an hour, he bargained. No maps, I promised. We let the promise sit between us until the garden felt it too. Somewhere in Ouroboros, a door closed carefully. The bone box by the steel table kept listening like a good dog. Arthur's ring stayed quiet. The vial kept calling the wall he'd written for it instead of us. I loved you when you were a boy eating noodles on a wall and pretending not to blush, I said into his shoulder. I love you now when you smell like ink and tired redeemers and a map without red pins. I'll love you tomorrow when we pick the boring, honest way to win. He exhaled like I'd handed him a password he already knew. I love you, he said, in all the ways we made room for. The blue roses didn't move. The air stayed clean. The ache didn't vanish. It folded into something I could carry without cutting my hands. Evelyn was never my mother, but she wore that place long enough to lace my memories with her voice. Charlotte's chalk held. My father's steadiness held. Arthur held me like I was a person and not a plan. We left the lights low. We carried the quiet out like a seal on a letter. Tomorrow could find us. Tonight, the garden kept our minute and we kept it. Chapter 959. Night at the Penthouse. Night at the Penthouse, Arthur's POV. Gray folded and the world let us through. One step we were in Ouroboros, steel corridors, low lights, the hum of night crews still at their posts. And the next we were in my penthouse in Avalon City. The ward recognized me and set the rooms to night mode. Soft gold along the baseboards, blinds lowered, temperature nudged warmer. The quiet here is different from headquarters. No runners, no paging tones. Just the city far below like a calm sea. Rose's hand was still in mine from the jump. I felt the last of the mission wire leave my shoulders as we crossed the entry hall. It smelled like fresh sheets and cedar. I had keyed the security to expect us. No chime, no handshake prompts. Tonight was supposed to be simple. Arrive, wash, sleep. Stella's already down, I said, voice low without meaning to be. Reka tucked her in after dinner. I told them we'd be late. Rose nodded. Her hair was loose, auburn falling past her shoulders. No badge, no house pin. Just her. Good, she said. You look like you need 3 hours with your brain turned off. Ambitious? I said, and meant to make a joke of it, but the truth was close. We didn't tour anything. The living room's glass wall held the city lights like a promise. We walked straight to the bedroom. I set my slate on the dresser, thumbed it to emergencies only, and slid it into the drawer so I wouldn't keep looking. The ward read the gesture and dimmed another notch. Rose disappeared into the bathroom. Water ran, then cut. I took my turn after, the fastest shower of the month, and came out in a cotton shirt and sleep pants with skin that finally felt like it belonged to me. She was already in bed, propped on one elbow, watching me the way she does when she's making sure I'm not still carrying something I could have set down. I slid under the covers and the mattress remembered us. It's a big bed by design. My life is not simple and neither is my family, but right now it was just the two of us and the quiet. Slates off, she asked. In a drawer, I said. Very brave. She smiled and tugged me closer by my sleeve. Then we can turn everything else off too. I let Lucent Harmony drop. Not the shield itself. Just the habit of keeping it quietly poised in the background even while I'm safe. It's almost as loud as a thought when you stop it. The air got softer. Rose leaned in and kissed me once, slow and certain, and then again with the kind of patience you only give someone when you know the rest of the world can wait. It's a strange skill, learning how to relax on purpose. You have to notice you're armoring up and then convince muscle and mana they can stand down. I felt the click of it, the small inner sound of doors unlocked, just as the bedroom door opened. We didn't hear a chime. There wasn't one to hear. She's whitelist in the penthouse wards the way breath is whitelist in lungs. Daddy! Stella stood in the doorway with a blanket pushed up under her chin and her stuffed fox dangling from one hand. Black hair half out of a braid. Black eyes too awake for this hour. Socks that did not match. She looked like she had run here on important business and then remembered to be polite at the last step. "Hey, Star," I said, sitting up. "You couldn't sleep?" She shook her head, took 3 fast steps in, paused on the edge of the rug like it was a border that needed a stamp, and then, when Rose flipped back the corner of the duvet without a word, came the rest of the way and climbed up. "I wanted to be with you," she said. Like she had done the math and this was the answer. She glanced at Rose. "With both of you, if that's okay." "It's more than okay," Rose said. She patted the mattress between us. "Come here, Comet." Stella scrambled in with the controlled chaos of a 12-year-old who has made a plan and is executing it now. The fox landed on the pillow like a diplomat sent ahead to announce terms. Stella wedged herself diagonally the way she always does, head toward Rose's shoulder, feet pointed at my shin. She smelled like laundry soap and a hint of workshop. One of her projects had clearly refused to go to bed on time. I adjusted the blanket over her legs. "Long day?" I asked. "My brain was loud," she said. "It listed things. I told it the list could wait and it said no. Charlotte says I should tell it to sit. I told it to sit and it stood up on purpose. Coming here was faster." "Then you were smart to come," I said. "We can outnumber a list." Stella's fingers searched in the dark. I held mine up. She found them and laced them without looking. Rose did the same on Stella's other side. For a while we didn't talk. We counted breaths together in the quiet. The city's light made a barely there band along the blackout shades. The ward's hum traded night blue for something warmer. "Can I ask something?" Rose said after a minute, voice steady and simple. Stella turned her head. "Always." Rose swallowed once I saw the small movement in the dim. "Would you like to call me Mom instead of Aunt Rose?" she asked. "Only if you want to. Only if it feels right to you. I want to be that for you." Stella went very still. Her eyes widened. For a heartbeat she looked like every age she has been, 3, 6, 9, 12, all layered at once and all of them wanting the same thing. She looked at me, last check. "It would make me very happy," I said. "Names are yours. You don't have to choose tonight. You don't have to choose ever. But if you want it, it's yours." She bit her lip. The fox slid off the pillow and did not protest. Then the want one. "Okay," she said. Small voice, very clear. "Mom." Rose's breath hitched. She didn't cry, not at first. She smiled like someone promising a good thing and nodded once. Slow. "Hi, Stella," she said. "I'm your mom." Stella launched herself into Rose's arms with all the speed and totality of a decision that will stick. I put my arm around both of them and closed the circle. The bed felt bigger for it, not smaller. We stayed like that until the emotion in the room settled into something gentle and ordinary. It's a good kind of ordinary. The one that makes a place into a home. "Ground rules," Stella said at last, practical even with wet lashes. "Mom gets this side. Daddy gets that side. I go in the middle because geometry. If there's a nightmare, we do the hand thing." She lifted our linked hands and wiggled her fingers. "1 squeeze means I'm here. 2 means I love you. 3 means go to sleep." "Accepted," I said. "Also," she added, "tomorrow we make pancakes. The thick ones. With the tiny chocolate chips that somehow jump into the batter even when you say no." "We will investigate that jumping," I said gravely. "It's physics," Rose said, equally grave. "Then it's not our fault," Stella concluded, pleased. She settled back down, head tucked under Rose's chin like it had been designed for that spot. Her breathing slowed by degrees. She made one small, unconscious sound and nudged her cold toes against my leg. I did not protest. This is the tax you pay for being allowed to be a part of something good. Rose looked at me over Stella's hair. Even in the dim, I could see her eyes shine. "Thank you," she mouthed. "You asked, I mouthed back. I just tried not to ruin it." Her mouth curved. The room was quiet in that full way that makes sleep easy. I reached toward the dresser without getting up and pushed the drawer with my slate in it closed the last inch. It wasn't necessary. Still felt good. "Daddy," came a tiny voice, half asleep. "Here," I said. "Tomorrow can we fix the squeaky wheel on the workshop cart? It makes the ward in the corner sad." "Yes," I said. "We'll oil it after pancakes." "Okay," she murmured. "Good night, Mom." "Good night, Daddy." "Good night, Stella," Rose whispered, and kissed the top of her head. "Good night, Star," I said. We didn't make plans after that. The map could find me in the morning. The warrants, the reports, the next set of cleanups. None of that was going anywhere. I let my eyes close with my daughter's hand warm in mine and the woman I love steady on the other side of her. The ward hummed like a house pleased with itself. The city breathed under the glass. Some things are worth guarding because they are powerful or they move empires. Some things are worth guarding because they are small and right and make the rest of it make sense. A child's voice sang Mom for the first time. A bed that holds 3 heartbeats and no alarms. A night when nothing explodes and no one asks for anything except pancakes. I slept. Not like a man who caught a gap between alarms. Like a man who came home and had the sense to stay. Chapter 960. Violet at the Threshold. Violet at the Threshold, Arthur's POV. By late morning, the penthouse sounded like a house instead of a headquarters. We'd fixed the squeaky wheel on Stella's workshop cart, tuned the reading lamp in her nook so it slid kindly from red to sleep, and printed a silly photo of the 3 of us. Stella mid-tongue, me failing to look dignified, Rose caught laughing. Stella put it on the shelf above her bed with both hands like placing a ward stone. The room's hum changed half a note. Small, real things do that. Agenda item 4, Stella said, hopping off the bench. Test balcony wind. Scientific hair assessment. Shoes, Rose said, catching her by the elbow. The tiles get hot. Operational footwear engaged, Stella reported, racing for her sneakers. I stood a second longer than I needed to, watching the way Rose smoothed Stella's braid and the way Stella leaned into the touch without thinking. It landed in my chest the way a door closes right for the first time after you fix the hinge. Quiet satisfaction. Also a clean line of responsibility. I had let the world eat most of my hours for months. Today I was not letting it back in. We were halfway to the balcony when the entry chime answered the elevator. 2 soft notes. Not an alarm. A courtesy. The ward flashed the ID across the living room panel without me asking. Reka, access okay. Saved by the bell, Stella said, pivoting in place. The fox under her arm tilted like a tiny judge. Reka's here. Rose's eyes flicked to mine. Automatic check, old habit, not permission. I nodded, already walking to the door. It slid open before I reached it. Reka stepped in with her usual grace, the kind that makes it look like doors were built to accommodate her and not the other way around. Violet hair braided tight and clean. Jacket off, plain blouse and slacks. A canvas market bag on one shoulder. Another looped at her elbow. She had that efficient Saturday look that has saved my life more times than most people know. Welcome home, she said, and the formality thinned when she saw me. The corners of her eyes softened. Master. Reka, I said, and took one of the bags before she could argue. It was heavy and smelled like herbs and garlic. You brought half a garden. Dinner insurance, she said. Contingency plan A through C. Also snacks. Her gaze checked my face like a medic, color, focus, posture. Satisfied, she moved on. Stella hit her at speed. Reka. Reka set the second bag down and opened her arms without breaking stride. Stella fit under her chin like she'd been designed to live there. Reka kissed the top of her head, then leaned back far enough to inspect her like a project. You have been up to crimes, she said, mock stern. Chocolate. Physics, Stella said at once. And we fixed the wheel, and calibrated the lamp. And, her mouth ran ahead of the room. Her eyes went to Rose, bright the way they get when she wants to show someone a good thing. And Mom did my braid. The word hung a breath too long before the room remembered how to move. Reka didn't drop her smile. She didn't gasp. She didn't do anything that would have been rude in front of a child. The shift was smaller than that. A half-breath caught. A blink that took one heartbeat more than usual. The tiniest tightening where collarbone meets shoulder. As if an invisible strap had been pulled one notch too tight. I felt Rose go very still beside me. Not scared. Careful. Stella barreled on, unarmed and unstoppable in the way truth is at 12. Mom made the light perfect. And she knows the knot that doesn't catch on hinges. Look. She turned, displaying the braid like a patent. Structural integrity. Reka's eyes tracked the line of it. Professional appreciation registered, because she is always honest with the work. Then her gaze lifted to the photo on the shelf, our silly print still drying at the edges. I watched the data settle. The braid, the lamp, the word, the picture that had not been there last time she tucked Stella in. Beautiful, she said. Her tone was correct. Her voice was a fraction lower. You look very happy. I am, Stella said fervently. We're making boring on purpose. That is a high art, Reka replied. She reached and fixed a flyaway hair by Stella's temple, fingers steady. Then she set her hand on Stella's shoulder like she always does when she is about to pivot the room. You promised Charlotte you would finish your reading module today. I did finish, Stella said. Mostly. 85%. 95 is the floor, Reka said, gentle, automatic. Go bring it here. We will check together. Then you can show me the wheel and the lamp. Okay, Stella said, already spinning toward her suite. She stopped, sudden thought rattling out. Mom helped me understand the last problem. She explained it like a person, not a book. She shot off down the hall, socks sliding on polished wood. The apartment exhaled with her. A different air rushed in. Reika watched the empty doorway for a beat longer than she had to. Then she turned back with a smile so perfect it might have been measured with a ruler. "Congratulations," she said to Rose. Polite, precise. A tone she uses in courtrooms and budget meetings when no one in the room is as smart as she is and she is choosing not to notice. "On your promotion." It was a knife with velvet on it. Rose didn't flinch from it. She stepped forward a half step, hands open at her sides where Reika could see them, voice even. "I asked last night," she said. "She chose. We were going to tell you. We just kept the morning for ourselves." Reika's eyes came to me at that last word. Ourselves. There are honest words that are worse than lies. I put the market bag on the counter so I wouldn't crush the basil. Very carefully, I didn't move closer to either of them. "You were with her for months when I wasn't," I said. Plain, not defensive. "You kept her world from tipping. That doesn't change now." A better man might have found a softer sentence. I am still learning how to be the kind of man my family deserves. Reika heard the intent anyway. I saw it in the way her jaw unclenched halfway through the second clause. But intent isn't inoculation. "She calls me Reika," she said, "and it should have been nothing." It was not nothing. Sometimes Ray, when she runs out of breath. That is also a word you choose. Rose nodded. "It is." She took another half step. "You have been there. You are there. This doesn't take anything from you." Reika held her eyes. "That is a claim," she said softly. "We will see if it is true." The faucet dripped once. A tiny treacherous sound. Somewhere in the city below. A siren wound up and then away. The fox on Stella's armchair looked pointedly neutral. Stella thundered back in with a stack of light boards and the certainty that she was bringing the most important thing anyone would hold today. She skidded to a stop at the edge of the carpet, saw Reika by the counter, saw Rose by me, read nothing that would trouble a child, and beamed at all of us at once. "Okay," she said, planting her module on the island. "Mom, you sit here. Reika, you sit here. Daddy, you're not allowed to help unless it's a safety thing." Reika's gaze flicked to the spot Stella patted, right beside Rose. For a heartbeat she did not move. "Reika," Stella prompted, oblivious and eager. "Please." Reika set down the second canvas bag with care a surgeon would respect. The handles made no sound against the counter. She smoothed a non-existent wrinkle from her blouse. Every motion neat. Everything exactly where it should be. Then she walked to the island and stopped opposite Rose instead of beside her. "Of course," she said. The smile she put on was flawless. Her eyes were not. "Master," she added without looking at me, the word too crisp by half. "After we finish Stella's module." She didn't finish. The ward light over the door pulsed once. Sensing tension it could not categorize. Stella looked up, pencil midair, mouth open to ask a question she would remember. And Reika's hand, the one resting on the countertop, curled very slowly into a fist. Chapter 961. The word I want. My hand curled on the countertop before I could stop it. Composure is a discipline. I practice it the way other people practice sword forms. Spine straight, voice level, breath measured. But when Stella said Mom and looked at Rose like she'd been handed the sun, something inside my chest slipped a notch and pulled tight. Childish, I told myself. I am 26. I know the arithmetic of love, it isn't subtraction. I've been the one with the time these past months. Homework and hair, night lights and soup. The hard hour after bad dreams. Ray when she runs out of breath. I logged her medicines, color-coded her study sheets, put socks back in pairs. I know the ward's midnight hum and the weight of her head when she is pretending not to be sleepy. None of that changes because Rose asked a brave, simple question first. Still hurt. "Congratulations." I told Rose when I could trust my voice. Came out perfect. Polite, precise. The tone I use in rooms full of men who would rather not notice that I'm running them. "On your promotion." I saw the tiny flinch she kept off her face. I did not like that. I liked seeing it. Stella came back with her study board and scattered the tension like birds. "Mom, sit here. Reika, sit here. Daddy, you're not allowed to help unless it's safety." I could have sat beside Rose and let warmth do what it does. I chose the seat opposite and let politeness hold where feeling wanted to spill. The ward light over the door pulsed once. Curious. We worked through a page. Stella explained her answers with the clean, fearless logic of 12. Rose listened the way she listens when she respects a mind. Chin in hand, eyes warm. Arthur did nothing impeccably. He understands no helping means no helping. "Tea?" he asked after the second page, too casual. "Reika, help me with the good kettle?" He did not need help. The good kettle lives on the second shelf, left of the grinder. It has for months. He said my name in the tone he uses when a hallway is the right place for a truth. I followed him into the pantry alcove. He eased the pocket door shut with 2 fingers. Stella's voice softened to a comfort through wood instead of a blade. He leaned on the counter. Not blocking the exit. Not crowding. He is very good at not turning concern into pressure. Reika, he said. I am being irrational, I said, before he could be gentle. Confession is easier than being soothed. I'm angry that I didn't ask first. Feels petty. It is beneath me. I will correct it. You're allowed to be human, he said. I love you like one. That line found the exact place in me that softens without my permission. You've been Stella's constant, he went on, not ceremonious, just factual. When I was gone too much. When operation days 8 hours. When I fell asleep at a desk I shouldn't have. You tucked her in and kept her world unscary. I see it. She sees it. Then why does it feel? I asked, surprising myself with the word. Like I just lost a race I didn't know we were running? Because you're a strategist, he said, not unkind. You were trained to measure the board and move early. Family isn't a board. There isn't one square you have to stand on to be real. The word isn't a rank. It's a door. Rose opened hers last night. You can open yours today. I stared at the neat tins on the shelf until their labels stopped blurring. If I ask now, it will look like a counter-move. Only if you treat it like one, he said. Ray, she already wants it. She asked me last week if mom can be plural. She thought choosing might make someone else feel less chosen. She's a smart girl. She will carry other people's feelings if you let her. Don't make her do that work. Shame is cleaner than jealousy. It cuts and cauterizes. I set my palms on the cool stone and let the temperature argue me into sense. Don't make a child manage your emotions. It should not need writing down. I wrote it down anyway, inside. I don't want to take anything from Rose, I said, and meant it now, not as a posture. Or from the others when they ask. There's room, he said simply. Scarcity is for budgets. Not for this. His hand rested over mine. Light. He never pulls when I'm like this. He offers and waits. I decided to take it. The muscle in my chest eased a notch. I love you, I said plain, because the small words are the only ones that matter. Not just master with a schedule I can optimize. You, Arthur. I chose this life. It's chaos, it's patience, it's wide bed, it's stupid expensive tea. I won't let the part of me that likes power make a mess in our kitchen. His eyes smiled first. Good. Because I was about to tell you to stop worrying about power dynamics and start worrying about pancakes. You already had pancakes, I said, faithful to accuracy even while my mouth wanted to curve. Then worry about asking your daughter for the word you want, he said, lifting my hand to his lips with an ease that still ruins me. Ask clearly. Offer choice. If she wants to wait, we wait. If she says yes, we make it normal, not a ceremony. She'll say yes, I said, and the certainty made me feel guilty for how certain I was. She will, he agreed, not to coddle me, but because he knows her too. And then we finish a study sheet, because someone will know if we cheat. I laughed once, small and honest. The tightness in my shoulders let go. The kettle remained unboiled, the tea could wait. I smoothed my blouse and opened the pocket door. The room looked the same. It wasn't. Things shift when you decide something. Stella had drawn bright arrows on the margin of page 2. Rose had marked a single neat box where the sign had gone wrong. An invitation, not a scold. They both looked up. The shine in Stella's face should be bottled and poured into tired cities. Reika, she said, patting the stool beside Rose this time, because children are either ruthless or kind, and today she had chosen kindness. Sit here. I sat beside Rose. Not a concession. A choice not to let fear choreograph my body. We need to check question 7, I said, because I am myself even when I'm brave. She corrected it with the satisfaction of a mechanic hearing a clean engine. Then she looked between us. Me, Rose. Measuring something that wasn't math. Stella, I said. I did not clear my throat, that's a tell. I didn't fold my hands, that's a shield. I kept my voice ordinary. Can I ask you something? Her back straightened. Always. Would you like to call me Mom, too? I asked. No apology. No contest. Just a door open. If you want to. If it feels good to you. Now or later or never. I will still be your Reika at full strength. But if you want the word, it's yours. She did not breathe for one beat. Then 2. Then her shoulders fell in that small, relieved way that tells you you've moved the weight to the right shelf. Okay, she said, like stepping over a threshold. Mom. For a heartbeat the world tried to go soft focus. I refused it because I wanted to see every pixel of this. Hello, Stella, I said. And if my voice dropped, it didn't matter. I'm your mom. She hit me with her whole body. I took it and folded around her. The stuffed fox slid to the floor. A diplomat who understood this treaty did not require his input. Over her shoulder, Rose met my eyes. No victory there. Only welcome. Thank you, I mouthed. Because grace costs nothing and buys everything. Room, she mouthed back. I understood. There is room for all of us, and she will help make it with her hands if the room forgets. Arthur didn't come over. He didn't need to. As he passed to refill Stella's water, his hand brushed the small of my back. A touch so light it was mostly information. Scene proud continue. We let go because page 3 existed and Stella had a sacred duty to conquer it. Question 9 is rude, she announced. It wants me to forget the minus. It does, I said. Show it you aren't polite to rude questions. She did. We finished the sheet. We signed the corner together without fanfare. Stella, Rose mom, Reka mom. No speeches. No hierarchy. Just ink. Hydrate, Arthur said. Setting a glass by Stella's elbow like a man laying down a law he intends to enforce because it's kind, not because it's loud. Tyrant, she said cheerfully, and drank anyway. I stood to make the tea I had not made. The little printer on the sideboard still held the silly photo from this morning. Stella mid-tongue, Rose caught laughing, me off guard in a way I almost never am. I picked it up and slid it into a frame, then set it on the shelf above the island. A room changes when you give it a new true thing to hold. Arthur watched me, not with tally marks in his eyes, but with the quiet satisfaction of a man who made a choice and was proven right. Inventory? He asked, mild, because he knows I like the rhythm of reports even when the subject is not steel or budgets. I filled the kettle and set it on. Abundance, I said. Chapter 962. A table with 2 agendas. The penthouse was quiet in the way I like best. No pings, no runners, just the city breathing far below and the rooms holding their shape. Rose's laugh from the kitchen drifted down the hall, threaded with Stella's quick questions and Reka's steady answers. I stood in the doorway a moment and let the scene fix itself in my head. Stella on a stool arranging plates by size because order improves flavor. Rose stealing a chocolate chip for science. Reka moving like a metronome. Pan, rack, board, never wasting a step. The photo we'd printed that morning. Stella mid-tongue, Rose laughing, Reka surprised into a smile, sat in a frame on the console. 2 moms in one day, said out loud, claimed. I hadn't realized how carefully we'd all been moving until that carefulness broke. For months the 5 of us balanced like diplomats. House names on one side, guild ranks on the other, feelings carefully wrapped in politeness. Everyone loved Stella. Everyone wanted to be the person she reached for in the dark. No one asked first. Not because of fear, not really, but because kindness made them cautious. They gave each other space so generously that no one stepped into it. Rose did. She asked. Reka followed. The air got easier to breathe. If a small thing is right, we do it now. That's why I thumbed open my private channel after lunch and sent 3 messages, each a version of the same line. Dinner here at 7. Not a briefing. Family. Dress code, socks. They all said yes. I watched Stella align the water glasses to her invisible grid and felt the brace I'd been wearing in my chest loosen another notch. I wanted the others here to see what today had already made true. And, because I like doing hard things while the room is kind, I wanted all of us at the table when I said there were 2 important agendas for the week ahead. Not for debate yet, just to set the ground. The elevator chimed. Rachel came first, hair up, jacket off, an unmarked paper bag under one arm. She kicked off her boots at the door, wiggled socked toes at Stella, and hugged me. Soap and lantern cedar and the calm that follows hard work. Bread, she said, lifting the bag. And an opinion. We have room for both, I said. Cecilia followed in a sweater instead of a suit, 10 years younger for it. She set down a wide glass bowl like she was laying a foundation. Undersalted, she announced. Because this house oversalts. Fair, Reka said, sliding it into the line without losing pace. Serafina slipped in last, a box of cut fruit in one hand and a shy spray of winter flowers in the other. Unnecessary, she said, then found the one clear spot that made the room feel finished and placed the flowers there anyway. She looked at me and didn't say it's good to see you. She doesn't have to for me to hear it. We ate standing for a few minutes, the kitchen counter, first slices of bread, Stella stealing olives with criminal efficiency. Then we sat. Round table. No place cards. The room made its own map. Stella wedged herself between Rose and Reka and glowed like a small sun. Rachel took the chair nearest the sink because she always cleans as she goes. Cecilia sat where the light was best, notes or no notes. Serafina chose the seat with a clean line to the door, then turned it one deliberate inch away from tactical and smirked at herself. I took the spot where I could see everyone. The first 10 minutes were purposefully about nothing. The workshop cart no longer squeaked. The lamp now dimmed without being rude. Redeemers were quietly copying Stella's color-coded checklists, and pretending it wasn't adorable. A very boring budget run would welcome heckling, Stella volunteered. Serafina peeled an orange with surgical precision and passed the segments like tokens. We looked like a family because we are one. I set my palms on the table. I didn't stand. Thank you for coming, I said, and the circle settled the way it does when it's time to listen. 2 important agendas tonight. I got exactly 1 heartbeat of clean silence. Then they pounced. Rachel leaned in, eyes bright with fond exasperation. All right, which dignitary did you charm this time, and why are we adopting their problems? Cecilia lifted a finger like she was about to cross-examine me. If this is a mutually beneficial alliance with a house that offended 3 courts and 2 guilds, I refuse to bring out the nice plates. Serafina slouched like a cat and arched an eyebrow. If he says, it just happened while we were discussing logistics, I'm taking the fruit and leaving. Wait, what? Stella began, delighted. Reka moved like lightning, one hand coming up to cover Stella's ears. Adult gossip, she announced deadpan. Protected class. Hey! Stella protested, trying to pry a hand away. I'm 12, not 2. Rose set her glass down carefully, mouth doing the kind of smile that tries not to show teeth. She did not save me. Rachel pointed her bread at me like a witness statement. Fine. If it's not a dignitary, it's Lyra. Cecilia's eyes sharpened. Envoy of the 7 crown princess of her kind. Of course. Serafina flicked a peel into the bowl with surgical precision. He said, 2 agendas like someone who has already written himself into a balcony at midnight. I held up both palms. It isn't Lyra. 3 skeptical faces. 1 12-year-old trying to bite Reka's hand. It could be Lyra, Rachel said, delighted with herself. It is not Lyra, I repeated, which only convinced them more. Why would it be Lyra? Stella demanded into Reka's palm. And why is Daddy Impch? Reka widened her eyes at me over Stella's head. Fix this or I escalate to 2 hands. I could have pushed the table into seriousness. I didn't want to. The teasing meant the room was safe enough to be ridiculous. That matters more than getting through an outline. No dignitaries, I said, keeping my voice easy. Agenda 1 is about this house, names, habits, how we do things so no one has to guess. We're not a court. No ranks at this table. Cecilia relaxed a notch. Serafina rotated her chair another fraction away from the door, which is her version of I'm listening. Agenda 2, I said, and stopped there. The second is real and important, but it can wait until after dessert. That's the rule I set for myself when I invited them. Family first. Then the world. LALALA. Rachel sang cheerfully, because she's a menace. Translation. He is meeting a princess and he's trying to bury it under salad. Cecilia smoothed her sweater like she was smoothing a deposition page. If a princess appears after the salad, I reserve the right to say I told you so. Serafina raised a slice of orange like a toast. If a princess appears at all, I am taking the fruit. Someone tell me why there would be a princess, Stella said, wrestling Reka's hand down a heroic half-inch. What do you people know that I don't know? Why am I the only person in this house who never gets clear answers? Because you are 12 and we are chaotic? Rose said, doing nothing to help, eyes bright. Correct, Rachel added, unrepentant. Reka, still covering Stella's ears with one hand, pointed at me with the other like I was a suspect in a lineup. Say your next sentence in G-rated terms. I looked around my round table. 2 women who had let a 12-year-old put a new name on them today, 3 who would find their way to that word when and how they wanted, a child fighting a dignified hand for the right to hear scandal, and me, a man who finally understood that the only politics that matter at home are the ones that make it easier to love each other. 2 agendas, I said again, steady. Both good. Both ours. Rachel rolled her eyes and grinned. Coward. Cecilia's mouth tilted. Prudent. Serafina's smirk deepened. Cornered. Stella huffed. Conspiracy. Reka calmly clamped her second hand over Stella's other ear. Protected class, she said, deadpan. Stella's outraged, was extremely clear anyway. Chapter 963, First Agenda, First Words. Stella's muffled protest slipped right past Reka's hands and hit the table like a bell. M.O.M. Everything stopped for a beat. Forks hovered. The music felt too loud for 1 second and then too quiet. Rachel's eyebrows went up high enough to hit her hairline. Cecilia blinked once. Slow, precise, and set her napkin down like it suddenly needed to be folded into a straight line. Serafina didn't move at all. She goes statue still when she's surprised. Chin tilted. Eyes a touch colder while she thinks through feeling. Reka held her ground. Palms still over Stella's ears. Face calm in that professional way that is also a shield. Rose's mouth curved, and she glanced at me like, there it is. The moment breathed again. Rachel was first to find her voice. Since when? She said very carefully. Do we say Mom to Reka? Stella wriggled, pulled one of Reka's hands down by sheer indignation, and popped up between them like a small, righteous lawyer. Since today, she said. Since last night for Mom, she pointed at Rose. And since this morning for Mom, a jab at Reka. And it's a good word and I get to have it. Rachel's shock unspooled into a grin, fast and bright. The jaw muscle that clenches when she's trying not to be jealous flexed once and then let go. It is a good word, she said, and the envy in her eyes wasn't sharp, just human. Across from her, Cecilia finished making the napkin edges perfect and aligned her fork exactly with the plate rim. It's her tell. Tidying what's already tidy when she wants something she hasn't named. She caught me watching and did not look away. Serafina finally moved, a tiny rotation of her chair back toward the door, then back toward the table. A tactical reflex she corrected on purpose. When she spoke, the dryness in her voice was thinner than usual. I see we are doing bravery at dinner. I sighed, because I'd been waiting for this and because they deserve honesty without making it heavy. That's why I brought up the first agenda, I said. We've all been careful for months. Too careful. Rose asked Stella for the word last night. Reka asked this morning. I'm glad they did. I don't want the rest of us to treat love like a rank you have to wait your turn for. Stella went still in the way she does when she's listening with her whole body. We're not a court, I went on. No ranks at this table. If you want that word, ask her. No ceremony. No keeping score. Rachel's mouth tugged sideways. You're trying to make us jump off the dock instead of testing the water. Yes, I said. Because the water is fine. Cecilia's tidy fingers stilled. Stella, she said quietly, not looking at me anymore. May I ask too? Stella turned toward her, serious as a judge. You may. Would you like to call me Mom? Cecilia asked. No hedge, no briefing voice. Just clear. Stella didn't hesitate. Mom, she said. And the okay was inside the word, bright and certain. Cecilia's shoulders eased 2 centimeters. She smiled in that small way she keeps for wins that matter. Thank you, she said, and reached across to squeeze Stella's hand. A quick press like a signature. Rachel blew out a breath that sounded like she'd been holding it since we sat down. All right, she said, hands up, palms bare. I want it. Stella, if you want it too. May I have Mom? Stella turned, considering nothing except whether her heart agreed. It did. Mom, she said again, delighted with how many times it could fit and still feel right. Rachel shut her eyes for a heartbeat and then started laughing at herself, swiping at one eye with the heel of her hand. Redeemers are going to start calling me that by accident, she muttered, and the table liked that enough to breathe differently. Serafina was last. She stared at her orange slice like it had information and then set it down with surgical care. When she spoke, the dryness was armor, the request under it was clean. I do not know if I am good at this word, she said. But I want it. If you want me to have it. Stella leaned across the small sunspace between them and touched Serafina's wrist. Gentle. Mom, she said, and the whole shape of the room changed. A small shift you felt more than saw, like the ward adding a note you didn't know it was missing. Serafina exhaled and, for once, didn't bother to hide how much relief looks like panic melting. Reka finally took her second hand off Stella's ear and rested both palms on the table, grounded. She didn't say anything to claim space she didn't have to. The space was hers and everyone knew it. Rose met my eyes over all of it and gave me the smallest nod. Good, right? Cecilia was the one to find the stray thread I hadn't tugged yet. A practical question, she said, and that's how you know she's about to ask something that matters. Stella calls Arthur Daddy. She calls us Mom, not Mommy. Why the distinction? 3 heads turned to Stella. She froze like we'd asked her to recite a spell backwards. Color climbed her cheeks. She studied the pattern in the table wood like it contained a trapdoor. It's okay, Rose said soft. You don't have to explain if you don't want to. Stella stopped, tried again. Mommy sounds like when you're small, she said at last, voice down a notch. Like 3. I didn't have that then. Not really. Mom feels like now. Like choosing. Daddy is Daddy. It didn't change. The room went quiet in a kind way. Not sad. Respectful. I reached over and scooped her up before she could drown in her own honesty, settling her sideways on my lap like I've been lifting her since forever. Approved, I said. All of it. She muttered something about being too big to sit like a baby and then leaned back into me anyway, head under my chin. Her ears were very red. Reka slid a glass of water across without comment. Rose brushed a crumb off Stella's sleeve with a tenderness that didn't need a label. Rachel cleared her throat and managed to make her voice light again. Motion to retain Mom as the house standard, with the understanding that any subvariants are valid if proposed by the minor. Seconded, Cecilia said, amused and soft. Carried, Serafina said, and ate her orange like a toast. The table felt different now. Not louder. Settled. The word had found its shape, and the house had adjusted its bones around it. I kissed the top of Stella's head and let myself enjoy the way everything had just become simpler. Good, I said. That was Agenda 1. Names. Habits. No guessing. Agenda 2, Rachel said, immediately predatory. The real reason we're here. Not a dignitary, I warned, because she was about to enjoy herself too much. Cecilia angled her chin. If you say it's nothing, I will throw you a calendar. Serafina leaned back, expression unreadable but interested. Proceed. I opened my mouth to start, and the doorbell chimed, a single polite note that cut clean through the room. Every head turned. Reka's hand tightened on the back of Stella's chair. Rose's eyes flicked to me. Rachel grinned like she'd set this up. Cecilia was already standing without realizing it. Serafina's fingers tapped once on the table and then went still. I set Stella gently back into her seat. Agenda 2, I said, and crossed to the door. Chapter 964. The last chair we saved. I opened the door. Luna stood on the threshold in her human shape, barefoot on the penthouse stone, amethyst hair braided over one shoulder, golden eyes steady as late sun on warm rock. She always brings the weather in with her. The air smelled like the first drop before a storm. Welcome home, I said. Her mouth softened. May I come in? You never have to ask, I answered and stepped aside. 5 pairs of eyes found her at once. Rose set her glass down, relief flickering through the practical calm she wears for me. Reka's hands went still on a dish towel, posture tightening, then easing by will. Cecilia straightened by a quiet centimeter, the way she does when someone she respects enters the room. Rachel's grin tilted, halfway between I told you so and it's good to see you. Serafina didn't move at all, which is how she shows attention. Statue still, eyes alert. Luna crossed to the round table and stopped with her hands light at her sides, not claiming more space than we gave her. Good evening, she said, voice low enough that the room leaned toward her without meaning to. Rachel broke the spell first, irreverent because she loves me and because teasing keeps houses honest. Is this the same "don't worry" you told us before? She asked, friendly lethal. Because we filed that under optimism, and here we are. Cecilia folded her napkin once, then again, lining the corners like evidence. Your last note contained the phrase "for a while," she said, precise and pointed. That is not a unit of time I can defend in a hearing. Serafina turned an orange segment in her fingers like a small moon. You told us the sky would hold, she murmured. It did. The house did not. Luna took it without flinching. I said it because I wanted it to be true, she answered simply. I needed to stand where the ground did not move while I understood what changed. Her gaze touched mine for a heartbeat and returned to them. That waiting hurt you. I'm sorry. No one here needed Luna to bow. We respect her because of what she is to me, not because she sits above anyone. Once I would have tried to smooth the moment with explanations. I let them do it their way. Rachel leaned back, verdict swift. Apology accepted. Terms: you sit, you eat, and if you leave again you say goodbye with numbers in the sentence. Cecilia nodded once. We saved a chair because we chose to, she said. It would be considerate to sit in it. Serafina lifted her orange as a deadpan toast. And to tell us when you stand up. Luna's eyes warmed. Those are admirable terms. She looked at the empty chair at my right, the one no one had touched all evening. May I? Please, I said. She sat. The room's geometry clicked into place like a door finally closing clean. The little tension that had crept under the table when the bell rang stepped back into the hall and shut the door behind it. Stella stood so fast her chair squeaked. Luna. Luna turned to her with the expression I've only ever seen her wear for 2 people. Hello, little star. You said you'd be gone for a while, Stella complained, hands on hips, equal parts scold and relief. That is not a number. It isn't, Luna agreed gravely. I will do better. Good. Stella's mouth tried to keep the stern line. It failed and became a grin. Cleared my throat. All right, I said, because they deserved clean lines. Agenda 2. I asked you all here for family first and then to say this in a room with every chair full. Luna and I need to decide what we are now that the ground under us moved. I missed her. She missed us. We are not hiding that. But we don't do corners in this house. 5 women measured me, then Luna, then me again. No one judged. They weighed and they chose. Rose nodded first, steady, kind, decisive. You were his bond before any of us had a name in his days, she said to Luna. There has always been a U-shaped space in this house. Reka set her palm on the table, open. You carried him when the rest of us could only build the road. she said, voice even. We accept what is real. Cecilia's gaze softened. You don't require our permission, she said. But you have our consent on one condition. No secrets that make the rest of us smaller. We share the hard pieces. Rachel's grin sharpened. Translation. Welcome to the ridiculous, beautiful group chat. We have rules about memes. Serafina looked away and back, her version of surrender. I am not good at jealousy, she said, factual as weather. I am good at respect. You have mine. Luna listened like she was taking measurements for something she planned to build with her hands. Then I should say something plain, she answered, golden eyes meeting each of theirs in turn before saving me for last. We have not kissed. The table paused. Then the same conclusion landed in 5 different minds and made the same shape. Cecilia said it first because blunt is mercy when it's clean. Good. That is right. Rachel nodded immediately. No corners. Serafina's mouth ticked. No balcony oaths without a quorum. Reka let out a breath I hadn't known she was holding and found my eyes. Thank you, she said. It wasn't about permission, it was about trust. Rose's smile gentled into challenge. When you do kiss him, she told Luna, warm and direct. Make it count. Color rose at the tips of Luna's ears. More sunrise than blush. I will. Stella had been bouncing on the balls of her feet, collecting bravery like pebbles. She took one step forward and stood between Luna and the table. I have something, she announced. Luna's focus narrowed to her like it always does. Yes, little star? Stella squared her shoulders, faced the woman who once knelt so a nervous 6-year-old could touch the smooth curve of a Chilean horn, and said, clear and small and huge, Mom. The word hit Luna like rain on stone. No sound at first, then all at once. She blinked. Are you sure? I chose, Stella said. It's a now word. Luna bowed her head, the fraction that means reverence, not distance. Then I am honored. Stella launched like a comet. Luna caught her and folded around her with that careful strength that is half light and half something older. Stella tucked under Luna's chin and breathed like someone who had put the last piece where it goes. Across the table, 5 heads nodded in crisp agreement none of them had rehearsed. It wasn't ceremony. It was a house acknowledging a thing that was already true. We did not turn it into a speech. We did not make a new chart. We did what families do when something right lands, we adjusted our bones and kept eating. Reka slid a glass of water toward Luna with the same quiet efficiency she uses to save my life. Drink, she said. You smell like rain and stubbornness. Accurate, Luna murmured, accepting it. Cecilia rotated the salad bowl an absent quarter turn, caught herself and smiled. We'll expand the breakfast rotation, she said to no one and everyone. We've added another mom with opinions. Rachel tore a piece of bread and flicked me the larger half. Congratulations, she said, on voluntarily making your logistics impossible. Serafina speared a roasted carrot, lifted it, and placed it on Luna's plate without comment. The quietest blessing I've ever seen. Rose tapped the table once, our small signal for speaking for the room. I nodded. For the record, she told Luna. We teased you because we love him, and because you told us not to worry. We were always going to make room. Next time, ask for it sooner. Luna met her halfway. I will, she said. Thank you for holding my space while I forgot how to ask. Stella wriggled enough to look at all of us with solemn treaty face. House rule, she declared. If you go away for a while, you have to say a number. Also, you have to come back for pancakes. Seconded, Rachel said instantly. Carried, Cecilia added. Enforced, Serafina deadpanned. Approved, Reka finished, like the motion had been waiting in her pocket all night. Luna smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. Understood. I let myself breathe all the way to the bottom. Agenda 2 had arrived on its own feet and found a chair. No corners. No ceremony. Just truth that fit. Dessert, I said, because I wanted to keep the room in the easy place now that it had done the brave thing. Then we can argue about who gets which school drop-offs like civilized people. Fruit, Serafina said, protective of her box. Cake, Rachel said, already opening the bread bag like it contained secrets. Both, I said, because this is my house and tonight we can afford abundance. We ate something sweet that didn't need a name. Stella stayed tucked under Luna's arm and, when she thought no one was watching, pressed her cheek to Luna's shoulder with a small, satisfied sigh. Rose and Reka bracketed the two of them like a habit that already existed. Cecilia made a list on her slate titled Breakfast Rotation, Draft, and pretended she hadn't. Rachel negotiated for custody of the group chat's meme permissions and lost gracefully. Serafina rearranged the flowers by a single stem and made the room feel finished again. I opened my mouth to tell them the rest. How the ground under me had changed, what I wanted to fix next, what I missed when Luna was gone. And the doorbell chimed once, polite as a butler, slicing the moment cleanly in half. Every head turned. I stood, touched Stella's shoulder as I passed, and went to the door. Chapter 965. The girl at the door. I opened the door and my stomach forgot how to be a stomach. Pink hair, simple hoodie, black jeans, scuffed white sneakers. Jade eyes like cut glass. No crown, no cloak, no stagecraft. Just Alisara standing in the hallway of my penthouse as if she weren't the most hunted woman on the planet. For one useless heartbeat I thought, she looks ordinary. Every other sense corrected me. The wards along the jamb trembled, then flattened as her presence wrote itself under their skin. The air thinned the way it does at altitude. My gray reared like a horse that's seen sunlight on a blade. Every instinct screaming now, and the part of me that has survived this long answered not here. Even with Luna on my right and 5 fiancés at my back, starting a fight in this room was a sentence with only one ending. Alisara had gotten stronger. The fact didn't arrive as an idea, it arrived as gravity. "Hello, Arthur," she said, cheerful as a neighbor returning a borrowed pan. "May I come in?" I kept my voice level. "You already have." Something like disappointment flickered behind the glass screen. "You used to tell me no, just to see if you could." I stepped aside. She crossed the threshold like she was strolling into a cafe, eyes taking everything in without turning her head. Luna seated at my right, Reka by the island, Rachel half-risen, Cecilia's spine straight as a plumb line, Serafina statue still, Rose's hand on Stella's shoulder. "Good evening, ladies," Alisara said lightly. "Congratulations on the promotions." Her gaze drifted to Luna and held. "And you?" At last. The temperature in the room went down a degree. "Get out," Rachel said, without raising her voice. Cecilia's fingers lined her fork with the plate rim. Her tell when she wants to throw the table and chooses not to. "You are not safe here," she said, precise. "For you." Serafina turned her chair 1 inch toward the door like she could freeze the air across it by angle alone. "This is a home," she said. "Behave like it." Reka didn't speak. She shifted 1 step so she stood between Alisara and the nearest path to Stella without making it look like a move. Rose's hand on Stella tightened. I put my hand over Rose's and then slid it to Stella's shoulder. "Star," I said quietly. "Eyes on me." She looked up, caught the tone, went very still. "Sleep," I murmured, and laid loosened harmony over her like a warm blanket. No compulsion, just a steady rhythm for her to match. Her lashes fluttered. She fought it for loyalty's sake. I kissed her hair and let my heartbeat do the work. She sighed once, small and trusting, and went under. I gathered her into my arms. If I had to die in the next 60 seconds, I would be doing it holding the only measure that has ever made sense. "Ah," Alisara said, head tipping. "You're sweet with her." The smile sharpened. "It will be darling when she's old enough to understand why you keep choosing rocks you cannot lift." "Why are you here?" I asked. "To see you," she said, as if that needed no permission. "To tell you I'm proud." She inhaled, slow, like she was tasting a vintage she'd cellared herself. "You've changed. Again. More gray under the skin. The crown fits better. It's beginning to sing." Luna stood, that fast, all grace and no sound. Pure light came up in her hands like a promise. Alisara's eyes flicked to her and back, the smallest acknowledgement. "I told you you'd hate the way I plan to kill lust." Alisara went on conversational, as if we were on a bench and not on the edge of a blade. "You will. It's gorgeous. It will make you furious. I came to advise you to get stronger quickly, so you can try to stop me when the hour comes." Her gaze cut to the 5 women and then back to me, jealous heat threaded through with something rawer. "And because watching you in this domestic theater is educational." "Educational," Cecilia repeated, dry. Rachel smiled with no humor. "She means painful." Alisara's eyes slid to Luna again. "And you?" Luna didn't flinch. "Me. You got to him first," Alisara said, voice still friendly and somehow uglier for it. "You carried him through the part where he was breakable. How diligent of you." "Love isn't a contest," Luna said, even and certain. "Everything is a contest," Alisara returned, softer now, and that was worse than sharp. I set my jaw. "Say your piece and leave." Her eyes came back to mine like a magnet finding north. The room fell away for one stretched heartbeat, and I hated that she could still do that to me. Hated the part of me that looked at a storm and wanted to meet it mid-sky just to see if I could stand. "I am waiting," she said simply. "I am waiting for you to finish becoming what you are. All this," she flicked fingers at the table, the chairs, the stupid perfect flowers Serafina had arranged, "is charming. It makes you stronger in the small ways. I need you stronger in the big ones. When you are, I will take you by the throat and by the hand, and you will finally stop pretending you were built for anything less than the horizon. Her smile went bright and terrible. I will tame you. Luna's light brightened until the edges of the room threw soft shadows. Reka shifted her stance. Rachel set her palm on the table like a trial oath. Cecilia's chin lifted. Seraphina's thumb touched the ring she freezes rooms with. Rose didn't move at all, her stillness was a blade. Try, I said, and my voice stayed quiet because fear is loud and courage isn't. Any day you want. Out there. I tipped my head at the glass. The city. The sky rails tracing clean lines. Not in here. Something in her face cracked and showed color. Jealousy is too small a word, this was hunger with a woman's shape. She looked at the five of them, then at Luna, and the temperature went down again. My heart hurts, she said softly, as if telling me she'd bruised a wrist. It hurts, Arthur. I want to kill them. Her eyes moved across them one by one, gentle as fingertips, lethal as a wire. All 6. The room tightened like a fist. Blood hit my ears. The part of me that is a map measured shelves and angles and sightlines and came back with the same answer as before. Not here. You can't win here. You can only lose slower. Don't, I said. Make me, she whispered. I didn't order anyone. I didn't have to. We moved on the same breath. Rachel's Redeemer lanterns. Small wrists flick. Red gold comb over stain. Cecilia's authority. Silent wards click into place. Invisible lines reinforced by will and schedule. Seraphina's cold, pressure drop. Clean, polite, lethal. Reka's knife writing. 3 sigils across air, slice and bind. Rose's blue, garden bloom geometry. Kindness turned into law. Luna's pure light, warm as late sun, honest as midday. My gray rose to meet them all and bride into one thing. A house that wouldn't break. Alisara opened her hand. Crimson threads whispered out like hair in water. No flash, no thunder. They simply were, and everything else was wrong. My gray hit them and slid, frictionless. Rachel's light combed and found nothing to clean, the threads were too clean. Malicious order that passed Redeemer tests. Cecilia's interlocks refused to read them as present, her rules couldn't see an exception that called itself a rule. Seraphina's cold crystallized on contact and became powder. Reka's cuts closed as soon as they opened, edges kissing themselves obediently. Rose's blue lines filled with red, as if her grace had agreed to host a guest. Luna's pure light wrapped them and found no place to carry them because they didn't wound, they held. The threads touched wrists, throats, ankles. They didn't cut. They wrapped. Weightless, absolute. By the time my gray decided to be reckless anyway and brute force a hole, a loop had already settled around my forearm and another around the throat of the man holding a sleeping child. Every instinct in me that has ever been worth a damn focused to a single point. Do not let anything touch Stella. The loop at my throat tightened 1 single millimeter. Alisara watched my eyes and smiled like she'd found a lever. See, she breathed. You're beginning to be interesting. Luna's light flared hotter. Release him, she said. And the room understood that if Alisara said no, we would pay the price and pay it gladly. Don't, I said again, because I had to try the smallest word first. Alisara looked at Luna. Jealousy sharpened into something unwise. I said it hurts, she murmured. It hurts, so much. Her fingers twitched. The threads tightened, and stopped, not slackened. Stopped as if someone had put a pin through time. Alisara's head tipped, puzzled for the first time since I'd opened the door. Hello, dear, said my mother behind her. Alice Nightingale stood close enough to lay a hand on Alisara's shoulder and hadn't. Her hair was up, her sleeves rolled, her face unpainted and set to the expression she used on kitchen fires and ambitious magistrates. The ward glowed around her palm like it had decided her was the version of law it had meant to be all along. Chapter 966, House Rules. Hello, dear, my mother said. Alisara didn't turn. The crimson thread at my throat held, a single millimeter too tight. Every instinct I own wanted to swing, to burn, to break. Everything in me that has ever kept me alive answered with the same truth. Not here. Stella's breath was steady against my shoulder. I kept it that way. Alice didn't touch Alisara. She didn't need to. The ward along her palm brightened, then settled, as if the sigils in the paint had just remembered who taught them their letters. House rule, my mother said. Calm as a kitchen fire she had already decided would not take the cabinets. No blood in my dining room. Alisara's smile tilted. The Nightingale matriarch, she said. At last. I wondered when the editor would leave the back room. I prefer the sink, Alice said. Less pretense. More work done. The crimson thread at my throat didn't loosen. If anything, the room felt cleaner, like we had stepped into the line between sentences. Alisara's power is like that malicious order. It makes your tools polite before it takes them away. Alice raised her hand, not high, and wrote in the air with one finger. Ink that wasn't ink caught on nothing and stayed. A neat line appeared along the crown molding in tiny block script, clean as a ledger. This is a home scene. Hospitality law applies. My myth weaver, when I use it, drags a space around us and asks it to be a story. Hers didn't need to drag. She didn't make a domain. She penciled in the margin and reality moved over to make room for the note. Alisara's eyes narrowed. The thread around my forearm wavered. Across the table, I felt my fiancés test the slack at their wrists and find none. Luna's light hummed in my bones and waited. Steady. You're strong, Alisara said. And the compliment was not flattery. Older edition. Fewer tricks. More authority. I have one gift, Alice said. It's enough. She wrote again, faster now, the letters forming in the air like sewing. No binding by guests. No naming without consent. No harm to sleepers. Each clause set the ward humming in a new key. The crimson threads considered. They did not break. They did what good villains do when faced with law. They tried to read their way through. Alisara's hand twitched. The red lines rippled and relabeled themselves ribbons, in some sly grammar that was and was not a word. Rachel's redeemer comb washed over them and found nothing to clean. Cecilia's interlocks clicked and refused, because her rules don't argue with the margin when it's written in a mother's hand. Seraphina's cold crystallized and fell away like sugar in tea. Reka's cuts closed as soon as they opened. Rose's blue geometry filled with red again, like a vein taking a dye. The loop at Stella's ankle, that I hadn't even seen settle there, stalled. Alice's eyes cut to it and her mouth tightened by a millimeter. She added a footnote under the air. By the old guest right, sleeping children are outside the scene. The loop slid off and hit the floor with no weight at all. It was hard for her. My mother didn't sweat. She doesn't show strain the way other people do. But there was a shine at her temple that hadn't been there, and the ward under her hand was beginning to glow through her skin. Alisara finally turned. She didn't look away from Alice's hand when she spoke. You rewrote the room, she said softly. Neat. But I didn't come to fight in your kitchen. You came to threaten my family in my kitchen, Alice said. She did not raise her voice. Filled the room anyway. Those are different verbs. Luna stepped between the table and the entry without making it look like a move. Golden eyes, amethyst braid, pure light steady as breath. Release him, she told Alisara, meaning me, meaning all of us. Or what? Alisara asked, genuinely curious. Or I forget manners, Luna said. Don't, I said, because if this turned loud the house would pay the bill and I live here. Alice wrote a third line in the margin. The letters looked like they had teeth. Scene boundary drawn. No antagonist escalation permitted beyond preface. The threads around my throat and wrist resisted like clever wire. Then, very slowly and very unwillingly, they unstitched themselves into loose strands and drifted back toward Alisara's hand like hair in water. Alisara watched them return with an expression I hated for how interested it was. You're better than he is, she said to my mother, meaning my myth weaver, meaning the part of me that is still a student. For now. It's my job to be, Alice said. He's my son. Jealousy flickered across Alisara's face, bright and stupid. She looked past Alice to me and then to the 6 women who had not moved an inch from where they would die for me. It hurts, she said, voice almost conversational. I want to kill them. Her gaze moved across them one by one, gentle as fingertips, lethal as a wire. All 6. Rachel's fingers flexed. Cecilia's spine stayed straight. Seraphina's mouth flattened. Reka's stance lowered a hair. Rose didn't blink. Luna's light deepened until my skin remembered sunlight on river rock. Alice didn't write that time. She spoke it and her gift put ink on the air anyway. Not in this house. Not in this city. The words hung there like law set in stone. The ward took them and ran them down the walls, into the floor, up through the vents, into the glass. The city answered in a way I had not heard since I was very young. Buildings are stories too, if you are patient enough to listen to bricks. Alisara pushed. It was small, half a thought. The crimson lines moved to answer her and hit the sentence Alice had just spoken like a pane of invisible glass. The room rang high and thin just once. Alice's hand shook. She hid it by smoothing the air as if it were a napkin. I realized, even for her, this is work. Alisara's smile returned, sharper now that it had failed to cut. This is why I like you, she told my mother. You make the game fair for people who would otherwise die. It's very sweet. And this is why I have never liked you, Alice said, letting a breath out through her nose. You call murder a game when you are bored. Alisara looked back at me like we were alone. She can find that angle in any room. Do your best, she said softly. Get stronger. I am waiting in the parts of the sky your mother's sentences don't reach. She flicked her fingers toward my fiancés and Luna without taking her eyes off me. I was telling the truth, she added, and the jealousy in her voice came out raw. My heart hurts. I want to kill all 6. Luna took a step she didn't mean to. I tightened my free hand. A warning. Alice moved first. She didn't write this time. She turned her wrist and tore the line she had written in the margin. The way a seamstress rips a basting stitch to move a hem. The room caught on that rip and began to slide. Chapter 967. Where Stories Obey. One heartbeat. Alisara stood a step from my table with threads in her fingers and hunger in her eyes. The next heartbeat she was at the threshold. Toes exactly on the line where tile becomes hall. As if the scene had been rewritten and she had always been there. Alisara blinked once, delighted despite herself. That was expensive, she noted, watching the fine tremor in my mother's hand and the brief gray in a strand of Alice's hair that hadn't been gray at the start of dinner. It was worth it, Alice said. Alisara's gaze moved over the room one last time. She looked at Rose and saw the woman who asked my daughter for a word and earned it. At Reka, who keeps my house from falling down when I have chosen a complicated life. At Rachel, who cleans the air with light whether it thanks her or not. At Cecilia, who will make law be kind if it kills her. At Serafina, who will freeze the sea if that is what keeps me warm. At Luna, who held me together until I could hold myself. Jealousy made that lovely face ugly. She let it. I am waiting, she said again, only to me. Don't let them slow you. They make me faster, I said. We looked at each other across the smallest distance in the world and made the same promise we always make when we don't know which of us will keep it first. Go away, Alisara, Alice said. And for the first time since the door opened, she put a hand on Alisara's shoulder. Not a shove. Not a blast. A mother's touch, gentle and absolute. The crimson threads unraveled into harmless silk and slid into Alisara's sleeve like they had been fabric all along. The air pressure equalized. The ward settled. Stella breathed, quiet and even, against my collarbone. Alisara took one step back into the hall and then another, not because she had been thrown, but because the scene no longer included a place for her to stand. Good night, Arthur, she said. Dream big. Good night, I said, because politeness costs me nothing and she hates it when I spend it on her. She turned and walked away like she had a dinner to get to. The elevator accepted her with a soft chime and the polite indifference only machinery can manage. The door closed. The house exhaled like a chest that had been holding breath since I was born. For a long second, no one spoke. Then all 5 of my fiancés did the same small thing at once. Eyes to my mother, a nod they didn't plan, the kind of respect that isn't about fear. Luna's pure light dimmed to the level that means she's still ready, but she trusted the moment. She looked at Alice with something new in her gaze, the tenderness she saves for beings who carry too much without letting it show. I laid Stella back in her chair. She didn't stir. I brushed hair from her forehead and looked up at the woman who once wrote my bedtime into existence when nights were bad and money was worse. Thank you, I said. Alice flexed the hand she'd written with, and for a heartbeat her knuckles trembled before the steadiness returned. Don't thank me, she said mildly. Thank me when you can do it yourself. She won't wait as long as she thinks she will. Rachel blew out a breath and sat, all at once. We need stronger rules, she said, shaky grinning. I vote we add no supervillains at dinner to the house charter. Cecilia found a pen she did not need and wrote it down anyway. Filed, she said, voice a little too even. Serafina fixed the flowers by a single stem and made the room feel finished again. Tea, she said quietly. I'll make it, Alice answered, stepping into my kitchen like she'd never left. She turned the kettle with a finger and it began to hum. Then we will write those rules. In the margin where they belong. She looked at me over her shoulder, the way she does when I am being a fool or a son. Eat something, Arthur, she added, as if she hadn't just redlined a monster out of my doorway. You shake when you don't. I'm fine, I started out of habit. Then be finer, she said. I sat. The table held. The ward held. Above the crown molding, faint letters still glowed where she'd written on the air. This is a home scene. Hospitality law applies. It would fade by morning. The law would remain in the wood and the glass and the bones of this place because she'd said it where stories obey. I watched my mother pour water, steady now, and understood in my ribs what I had only known in my head. I am behind. Alisara is further still. And the person who just saved my house with a sentence has been telling me the same thing since I was 12. Catch up. Explain, Rachel said. Not to be rude, but because quiet after panic turns to noise. Alice tapped the faint margin letters. He pulls a tent over the world and calls it a garden, she said, nodding at me. That is a domain. It spends force to make space obey. Strong. Wasteful. And you? Cecilia asked, intent. I write in the white space where the story already lives, Alice said. Margins are cheap and stubborn. Less spectacle, more law. If you can bear to be boring, you can move mountains. Boring is good, Rose said. Boring is undefeated, Rachel agreed. Luna studied Alice's hand. How much did that cost you? A night's sleep. Perhaps 2. I can take you home, I said. You can let me finish my tea, she countered. Serafina rested her chin on one knuckle. If Alisara returns with worse threads? Then you will have better scissors, Alice said evenly. And Arthur will have better sentences. Reka set a slate on the table. House Charter. Proposed amendments. Cecilia leaned in. Article 1. No hostile guests at meals. Article 2. If a hostile guest arrives, kitchen law supersedes posture. Article 3. Stella's sleep is sacred. Article 4. Rachel said, pen poised. Moms get first right of refusal on doorbells. Article 5. Serafina added. Fruit is non-negotiable. Article 6. Rose said, tapping the slate. We say the quiet fear out loud and let it be answered. They looked at me. Article 7. I said. We choose boring first. If a thing can be solved with a sentence, we spend the sentence. Alice's eyes warmed. Good. Luna's hand covered mine, light and anchoring. Training, she said. Every morning before the house wakes, I answered. Copy work. Margins. 1 line, then 2. No garden unless the roof is already on. Start with verbs, Alice said. Verbs name intent. Nouns follow after. Adverbs are excuses when a verb is lazy. Rachel snorted. Personally attacked. Good, Alice said, and even Serafina laughed quiet. Cecilia can't resist a schedule. We'll build a rotation around your morning work. Reka, safety intercepts. Rose, log phrase outcomes. Rachel, measure ambient stain before and after. Serafina, stress test phrasing with cold within kitchen law. Luna, calibration. Perfect, Luna said. I glanced at the door. The hall was empty, but the absence was sharp. She'll test our lines. Of course she will, Alice replied. That is her job in this story until you change it. And you? I asked. A boy in me still needed the answer. Will you be here? When I am needed. And when I am not, you will do without me and become. Both are correct. I nodded and felt the fear take a seat like a guest who had finally found their place card. Stella murmured in her sleep. Reka tucked a throw over her legs with the same precision she uses to file a blade. Rose brushed hair from her forehead and whispered something small. Rachel gathered plates. Cecilia photographed the slate and tagged it Charter V1. Serafina turned the flowers a single degree so the tallest stem framed Luna. Luna watched them all, then watched me. Alice poured the last of the tea and set the kettle back on the trivet. One more line, she said, looking at me. Write it now. I let my breath even and raised my hand. No garden. Just the white space above the table where a story lives because people sit around wood and choose each other. I wrote, small and careful. Tonight is for rest. The letters took, faint but real. The ward hummed in a tone I hadn't heard from my own work before. Domestic, unheroic, perfect. The floor felt truer. Stella's sleep deepened a fraction. Even the city outside forgot it wanted to be loud. Alice smiled, quick. There he is. 1 line, I said. 1 is enough if it holds, she answered. Tomorrow write 2. Rachel yawned. As the charter clearly states, I'm choosing boring. Dishes, then bed. I will help, Cecilia said, already stacking. I'll wipe the counters, Rose offered. I'll lock the balcony, Serafina said. I'll carry Stella, I said. I'll watch you not trip, Reka replied. I will stand at the door until you're done, Luna said, simple as a vow. Alice turned off the music none of us had heard since the bell. I will be here in the morning, she said. With paper and a pen to see your second sentence. I lifted Stella. Felt her weight the way you feel a promise you aren't afraid of. The margin words above us glowed like a nightlight. This is a home scene. Tonight is for rest. I believed them. We moved together, doing small things right. The kind of victory that doesn't look like one unless you know the cost of losing. When I came back from laying Stella in her bed and making sure her fox hadn't fallen. The living room was clean. The charter slate lived on the console. And my mother had written a tiny final note near the crown molding where only I would notice it. Catch up, it said. I smiled. And for the first time since the doorbell rang, it reached my eyes. Hello everyone, this is Shadow. Due to copyright restrictions on YouTube, I can't publish many of the audiobooks you love. That's why I've created a special paid service where you can enjoy over 300 high-quality audiobooks from platforms like Webnovel, Pocket FM, Audible, Wuxia, and more. Each novel comes as a one-time purchase, no subscriptions, no hidden fees. After payment, you'll receive full access via Telegram, along with all future updates for that novel. You'll find a wide selection of your favorite genres and titles, always in premium audio quality. Check the full list of available novels in the description. DM me now to get your favorite stories in audiobook form and start listening today.